What's up, San Diego? Happy Tuesday to all of you out there on a Tuesday morning as we are a couple of days away from opening day and the Padres getting ready to start their 2025 season. We're going to be out at Baja Ricks on Thursday. Should be a fun time with Ben and Woods and then myself coming up after the Ben and Woods show is over around 10 o'clock before we throw it to Sam Levitt and the Padres pregame show. It's going to be a great time on Thursday. Can't wait to get to that point. We still got a couple of days we got to grind through until we welcome the Atlanta Braves back into Petco Park. That's the place where their season ended a year ago, and they get to start the season at Petco Park after finishing last season on the road at Petco Park. It's funny how those things particularly work. Lots to talk about on the show today when it comes to San Diego sports. Obviously, a lot to do with the Padres. We got most of their roster yesterday. The only spot left is probably whether or not Logan Gillespie makes the roster as a bullpen piece. Now, nothing has been official yet. You will not get an official roster until Thursday on opening day. But that being said, it's leaked out, and now we know who the Padres 2025 roster is going to be. You look it over, you see the bench. We talked a lot about the bench yesterday. You look at the starters. You look at what the Padres have in store for 2025. And now you can start thinking about how does it compare against everybody else in the National League. As of right now, the Padres, according to MLB.com, on a full preview of the 2025 season, has the Padres as number 10 coming into the year. They put them in a tier 3. They could be contenders. I think the Padres are, in fact, contenders, but you start looking at and breaking down the top 10 in Major League Baseball, it's a lot of National League teams, and there's a lot of National League teams that are in front of the San Diego Padres. In fact, according to ESPN.com's power rankings, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Phillies, the Mets, the Diamondbacks are the top 5 teams in baseball. All National League clubs. All clubs that the Padres are competing for playoff spots against. We've talked about it before. We'll say it again. I'll mention it 12:30 when we really dive into this, ranking system that they put in and whether or not we agree with it or where the Padres are going to be. I still think the Padres are a playoff team. I think looking at the roster, I think they're a playoff team. I'm going to say it right now. We're going to do a full preview of the Major League Baseball season tomorrow. Get all your picks in, or should I say my picks of what I think is going to happen. But I got the Padres at about 86 wins this year. I think it just gets them in the playoffs at either the 5 or the 6 spot, depending on how well everybody else does. But as I mentioned before, if you're going to waste your time talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers, you're going to go insane. You already know they're the team to beat in all of Major League Baseball. In fact, ESPN.com that put together this season preview and the opening day power rankings split every team or group of teams into tiers, and tier 1 was labeled the almighty Dodgers. And that was it. It was just LA. So we obviously know they're the team to beat. But the reality is you got to go through progressions to get to that point. At least that's how I'm seeing it. And right now, your progressions are finding ways to make the playoffs. That's your first progression. Have a good first half of the season. I mean, there's other little goals that you can mix in there. But finding a way to get into the postseason. And you look at the National League power rankings. If you just put them in order in the National League. Dodgers, Braves, Phillies, Mets, Diamondbacks, Padres. If you split that up into division winners and wild card spots, Padres are not currently a playoff team in that particular sense. Dodgers would be the NL West winner. Braves would be the NL East winner. Your 3 wild cards would be the Phillies, Mets, and Diamondbacks. And then the Cubs, who are behind the Padres, would be the NL Central winner. Or one team, one spot out. So you start looking at how everything sets up. And I've talked about this before. I'm going to continue to talk about this. You're not worried about the Dodgers. And you're really not worried about Atlanta too much, but that's just assuming that you think Atlanta's going to win the division, which I do. I think Atlanta's going to win the National League East. I think that would be my for sure pick, lock of the year. Not to say that they can't lose it, but Philly, I think they're better than the Phillies. I think they're better than the Mets. You need to pick one of those teams, and they're out of the equation. So they're just going to go with the Dodgers and the Braves. Based on the power rankings, they got the Cubs as the division winner of the Central, which leaves you with a group of Phillies, Mets, Diamondbacks, and the Brewers. And you have to do better than two of those teams. Now, the Phillies, Mets, Diamondbacks, and Brewers, you have to do better than two of those teams. So that's where everything stands if you're the San Diego Padres right now, going in opening day, going into the season. Those are the teams you have to be worried about. Those are the teams that you have to root against. Those are the teams that you have to do well against when you play them head-to-head. Those are the teams that you are battling with. Our focus all offseason has been on the Los Angeles Dodgers. It needs to be on the Arizona Diamondbacks, if you want my honest opinion. If you outlast the Diamondbacks in your division, you come in second in the NOS, you will be in the postseason. If the Padres do not do better than the Diamondbacks, they will not be in. I think it's going to be honestly as simple as that. You got to outplay the Arizona Diamondbacks if you want to make the postseason in 2025. That's where you're at right now if you're the San Diego Padres. There's a lot of other stuff you could talk about with the San Diego Padres today. I thought Dennis Lin had a great article on Jackson Merrill and how he wants to stay here in San Diego long term, what an asset he is to the San Diego Padres. He talks about in the article how many times that the Padres tried to extend the contract of Jackson Merrill even before he jumped on the airplane to go to Seoul, South Korea last year for the first game and his major league debut. And in the article about Jackson Merrill, it explains how he kind of used the Jackson Chourio contract that he signed before he even made the big leagues as kind of a starting point. And let me get a year under my belt to earn the money that I deserve. Now, that being said, that might sound a little bad, but the reality of the situation is Jackson Merrill knows what kind of value he's worth. He knows what he wants. And at the same time, the guy wants to win so bad that he wants to make sure he is in a position where even if he does get a big contract, and this is his quote, he doesn't want to take as much of the Padres' money as possible because he understands the more money that I get paid, the less they can pay others to make the team around me good. That's kind of a breath of fresh air in Major League Baseball. I mean, you see that in the NFL, but that's because all the contracts are reworked all the time. And the money's not guaranteed, and they move things around, and it's very fluid. Major League Baseball, it's not the case. They got a better players association than the NFL. It's a big reason why their guys get paid a lot more than NFL players, and their contracts are fully guaranteed and everything like that. But pretty remarkable words from a young player that is still in his young 20s. I mean, I think he turns 22 this year. He's a piece that you would need to keep in San Diego long term. That being said, has he played his way out of San Diego? I mean, that's a major question I think needs to be answered. The valuation of what he potentially can make and what he is expected to make would be up in the category of some of the contracts the Padres have already handed out, like a 15-year contract. You can't afford to lose this guy. That's why I said all last year, if you firmly believe that Jackson Merrill is the future of this franchise and is going to be the player that you expect him to be, you have to give him an extension as quickly as possible and take the risk that he's going to pan out to be the player that you think he's going to be. That's the way Atlanta does it. That's the way the Brewers tried to do it right there. It's the way Arizona did with Corbin Carroll. That's how you keep some of these young players so you don't have to overpay for them. I think they did a good job with Tatis and extending him as quickly as they could. But even then, They let him play a little bit. He put himself on the face of Major League Baseball track, and they ended up having to pay him $375 million or whatever it was at the time. Now that's going to be a pretty good contract in the near future. But with all the other contracts that they've handed out, can they afford Jackson Merrill? Has he played his way out of San Diego based on what the value of that he is supposed to get? We'll talk about that 11:30. There's a lot of stuff we could get into. Eric Rupner, the CEO of the Padres, he was on with Bennett Woods. There was a couple of things that he said I thought was very interesting. Very interesting. Especially when it comes to the Padres TV deal. There's a lot of things that he was not able to talk about, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a big collective bargaining agreement coming up that is going to lock out the players, and it's going to be a long process. But there's something he said that I thought was very important. We're going to talk about that at 11 o'clock in the future of Major League Baseball and why this lockout might be very, very difficult. But before we get to that, I think the biggest news, aside from opening day, and we talked a lot about the Padres to start the show, is what San Diego State losing Magoon Gwath means. Not only to the current state of the San Diego State Aztecs in terms of their overall on-court play, but what the future of Aztec basketball is, sports for all three major universities, and mid-majors as a whole. It was glaring yesterday when the transfer portal opened up. We're going to talk about why I wouldn't want to be, or should I say, why I would be worried if I was San Diego State, UCSD, and USD when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:17 on a Tuesday morning. Talking a lot of college basketball today, but also Padres baseball. We're going to talk about some of the things that Eric Grupner said coming up at 11 o'clock, including, some interesting nuggets on the Padres TV deal, current and future payroll, plus what it's like to work with John Seidler. We're also going to know what's going on at Petco Park, some of the new things at Petco Park. What are some of the favorite things that you guys have at Petco Park? I mean, there's a lot to pick out from. They've made that place awesome. Over the last couple of years. Been able to do obviously a lot with it. They've kept it up, which is great to see. And it honestly makes it one of the best ballparks in the United States. The fact that it got picked in USA Today's as like 6th or 7th this year was kind of ridiculous. But that being said, we'll talk about that coming up at 11:15. Plus, at 11:30, Jackson Merrill wants to stay in San Diego long term, but has he played his way out of San Diego? He might be too expensive. We'll talk about that and whether or not the Padres can afford Jackson Merrill coming up in the 11:30 spot. But let's talk about the Aztecs. San Diego State's basketball team learned on Friday that they had lost their senior guard to the transfer portal 3 days after concluding an NCAA tournament interview by saying, "We'll be back." Who's we, exactly? On Monday, San Diego State learned their 7-foot NBA prospect has gone too. Magoon Gwath, as reported by Mark Ziegler, walked down the hall from the coach's office and submitted paperwork to enter the transfer portal, which for college basketball officially opened Monday morning. Gwath is expected to test NBA draft waters, but if he returns to college as most expect, it almost certainly will not be at San Diego State. He joins point guard Nick Boyd, who made his announcement on Friday. Brian Dutcher had this to say: "Financially, it's hard for us to compete with some of those other schools for these upper-level kids. We can compete in every other way. We can't compete financially with the money that's being offered for some of these players. It is what it is. It's a new world. There's too much money at stake." If you look at from a perspective of Magoon Gwath and his family's situation, as mentioned in the article, Gwath's father's an Uber driver. His mom's a custodian in the Dallas area. Dutcher estimated Gwath will command in excess of $1 million, maybe as high as 1.5 or 1.7 million, the way the market is trending this spring. The Mesa Foundation, San Diego State's basketball collective, has worked tirelessly to increase its NIL budget from $350,000 3 years ago to north of $2 million for 2025-2026, which is at or near the top of the Mountain West. The thought was high major programs would have 3.5 million to 4 million more than the Aztecs, but not exponentially more. But that has drastically changed. I don't know how San Diego State with this is going to be. First of all, is going to be able to compete at any type of level in any sport. I mean, the NIL is just ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous how insane the NIL has been. It's also utterly ridiculous that the transfer portal is open right now in the middle of the NCAA tournament. I mean, I could go a lot of different directions with this. But you saw Gwath enter the portal yesterday, and just unreal timing from San Diego State. It could have been a scheduled tweet. It could have been a scheduled release. But it just does not look good for the Aztecs and their program, in which, honestly, a lot of it is above their control. And they're doing what they have to do. But yesterday, after Gwath leaves to go to the portal for greener pastures, Brian Dutcher has a video that they put out with the Mesa Foundation asking people to donate money to try to keep as many players for San Diego State as they possibly can. Here's Brian Dutcher's claim to get more people to spend money.
Hello, San Diego. Head coach Brian Dutcher of your Aztecs. We need your help to keep our Aztecs at the top of college basketball. Mesa Foundation is the way to do it. We have a matching campaign going on right now. To every dollar you give, up to $500,000 will be matched. To keep this team together, to keep our future secure, we need your help now. Please go to mesa-aztecs.org. We need your help.
Yeah, they need your help. I mean, I don't know how they're going to be able to keep anybody. I don't know how you're going to be able to be competitive in this. I mean, the NIL is just absolutely killing the love of college athletics. I mean, you went from one side of the spectrum on an extreme of the NCAA making billions of dollars and the college athletes not getting paid. They were still getting a college education. Apparently, we don't give a rat's you-know-what about that anymore, which I will say this all the time. I've always been a component of that. I will tell you right now, what I've learned in college, has gone such a long way. You don't need a college degree to be successful in life, but I definitely think it helps you, and it leads you to way more opportunities. It's the whole saying, teach a man to fish. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. We don't care about teaching men how to fish anymore. We don't care about teaching any young people how to fish anymore. Just give them the money and have them move on, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully the best for them goes along. But to say that the players were getting a raw end of the deal for going to college for free and leaving college with no debt. And by the way, these colleges hook these guys up with great opportunities. I mean, when I was working at TCU's football program, the perks of playing in college athletics were just insane. But the thing that really I agreed with the name, image, and likeness was a lot of the rules were dumb in a sense of some kid has a great YouTube channel and he's also a good athlete, and he has to forfeit all the money he makes from the YouTube channel in order to play men's lacrosse at Johns Hopkins. That's a very specific example. But still, there was a lot of examples like that. The athletes like the girl that Paul Skeens dates Dunn. Livy Dunn, the gymnast. She makes a lot of money on her own. And the fact that she wouldn't be able to do that because she's a college athlete is utterly ridiculous. But she doesn't get paid to do gymnastics. She gets paid to market products. That's what name, image, and likeness is. It's not this write a contract because the guy's one of the best rebounders in the country. So, yeah, I'm not really on board with the NIL situation because there are no rules. Both things can be true. I saw someone. By the way, I hate when they compare it to coaches. Coaches are paid professionals that are not student athletes, right? Again, if you want to use a lot of this stuff for student athletes, I mean, they're student athletes until you make them employees, but they're employees. They have families and they move all over the place, and they're just that's their livelihood. They're not learning how to do it as a student where they're making millions of dollars. I mean, Magoon Gwath, with what he might be able to make, would be in the top 1% of earners in the United States for being a college basketball player. It's crazy. It's utterly crazy. And not only is it the NIL, but it's the mix of the transfer portal as well. I mean, the transfer portal is just out of hand. Why are we doing this right now in the middle of the NCAA tournament? Why? Oh, well, we got to make sure they're on page to do their classes when they get to their new school. Are you kidding me? Are they student athletes or are they not student athletes? What are they? They're either paid professionals, and this is a pro league, which is fine. You could do that. Or they're student athletes. There's so much of this is just like all the benefits of both with no repercussions of anything else. The NCAA did this. The players are doing this. The TV companies are doing this. I said it yesterday. All the powers to be, the players, the NCAA, the coaches, the television companies, collectively, they have the golden goose strangled in their hand, by the neck with an axe in the other hand. They're going to execute their golden goose and then go, what happened? Why doesn't nobody watch this anymore? How come we're not making as much money as we used to? Why are there less sports programs at universities for the kids that actually need that sport to get a college education because they are not going pro? This is getting out of hand. Giving a college athlete $2 million who isn't a professional is utterly ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I think a lot of the other issues, too, with this ridiculousness is just the way that it. I mean, I could go a lot of different ways. We got to take a break. But the problem with this is, for a lot of the local schools, is the local schools are not in power conferences, and they're now the farm team of the power conferences. Is there a future for local college athletics at the D1 level in San Diego? I'm going to explain whether or not that's true when we come back. The Braden Surprenant Show, standing as number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. The NIL conversation is insane. It's crazy. We'll talk about the local colleges. I've seen a lot of people in the chat. Here's what people don't understand. And there's a lot of people in the chat today that don't understand. The whole player-coach comparison when it comes to NIL and contracts. There's two totally different. There's differences. Okay? They're still student athletes. And until they make them full-time employees, they're not employees or paid professionals as much as you would like to say that they are. And until the school pays them money, they are not paid professionals. So a coach making a lot of money and leaving for the betterment of his family is still different than a player doing the exact same thing. It's different. Those are student athletes. These are professionals. The other thing that people don't understand about the coach-player comparison is the coach inherits all the risk where players do not inherit any risk. The risk of the players is the risk of doing the sport. The risk of the coaches is their entire livelihood and moving all over the place with their family to try to survive as a professional college football coach. Same thing can be said about how much you're paying the players. You can't blame the players for the situation that they are now a part of. You can't blame the coaches that schools are willing to pay coaches X amount of dollars to try to win at a high level. And again, these coaches make a bunch of sacrifice and also inherit all the risk. If the team sucks, coach is gone, family's got to move. If the team sucks and the coach leaves, player could go find somewhere else to play very easily. It's the same difference between the employees and the person that started and owns the company. The person that started and owns the company, it's their product. They're responsible. Leadership is taking responsibility of results. And as the coach and the leader of programs, that is what they are doing. So it's not the same. Stop comparing the same because it's not the same. And stop comparing the high school kids that sign in Major League Baseball to minor league deals to the same as college kids. They're not the same. Those would be professional athletes. The thing that's very interesting that moves all of this is there's about a very small percentage of these players that are affecting everything else in college athletics, and it's mostly the top of the football side that doesn't have a minor league system that they can opt into as high school kids to get paid immediately at the elite level. A lot of kids that still play in college athletics are there to get an education because they know they're not going to go pro. And this is not going to be a profession for them in the future. And they also know that this is not life-changing money that you can just not work the rest of your life. I mean, I'd love to have $2 million. I'd love to have $1.7 million. I think it'd be great for Magoon Gwath and his family to get $1.2 million. Maybe 1.7, whatever the thing is. Whatever the market is for Magoon Gwath. But that being said, if Magoon Gwath gets $1.5 to $1.7 million, him and his family cannot live on that for the rest of their lives. Not the case. But the NIL and everything like that and the transfer portal are destroying college athletics because of a couple of things. And we mentioned it yesterday with MLS. With Major League Soccer and players moving all the time, just like they do in all levels of soccer. And again, with the MLS and not taking the break, the international break that everybody else takes, and you have some of your best players playing internationally, as well as the fact that you're basically a development league for the rest of the country, the rest of the world, as well as minor league teams. The hardest thing is trying to keep the players and build camaraderie with the fans. You got a brand new team every year. Brand new team every year in college athletics. How does that work as like a fan? I mean, it's like the biggest argument I heard from Aztec fans after last Tuesday was, well, it's a young team and, to do this with a young team's great and everything like that. But look, it's only great if they come back. If they don't come back, it doesn't matter. You got to start over again. And so when you look at the local colleges here in San Diego State, UCSD, and USD, if this continues, the rules, or should I say lack thereof, of NIL and the transfer portal, which is insane in its sense, they're not going to be D1 for much longer because there's not going to be any reason to compete. It's going to be almost impossible to compete if you're San Diego State, UCSD, and USD in any sport, aside from niche ones that the big schools don't spend a lot of money on. Basketball and football are the two main sports, and now, baseball, the SEC spending money all over the place. Those sports are going to be dominated by power conferences. I mean, I saw a graphic. I even sent it. I saw a graphic today that showed, and I'm going to find it for you guys, that showed all of the Sweet 16 teams and where the logo of the players of their starting five, where they started. And it was remarkable. There was only one team that was all homegrown, if you will. And it was Purdue. Purdue had an all homegrown team. But that's a Power 5 school that's really good in basketball. It's got a lot of money they can spend on basketball. But if I can do this correctly on this thing here, and I should be able to show you guys on the YouTube stream, this is a look of the 16 schools that are competing in the Sweet 16. Each logo represents the original school that the starting five players were at. And if you can look, you can kind of figure out that it's in some sort of order. But I look at the graphic, and again, if you haven't seen it on YouTube, we're on YouTube. Duke's got 4 Duke logos and 1 Tulane logo. That's one of the better schools that has kept their own talent. It is freaking Duke. Duke's not going to lose a lot of players in the transfer portal. They're going to get some of the best. They're going to spend the money, and they're going to keep those players. Purdue, same thing. BYU's got half and half. They got 3 BYU players, a Rutgers player, and a Utah player. But look at Kentucky. You know it's Kentucky because they got the Aztecs logo, and you know it's based on the little regions. But Kentucky is San Diego State, Oklahoma, Dayton, Delaware, and Drexel. Kentucky's got nobody from their own school. In fact, some of these don't even have their own school represented. It's hard to try to figure out what school is what. Tennessee's got 2 Tennessee Volunteers, a logo I have never seen before in my life, Virginia and Ohio State. I'm trying to piece it together. There's another school. It's Kentucky, FAU, Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee. What school is that? What starting five is that? St. Peter's, Virginia Tech, Ole Miss, Louisville, Vanderbilt. We could play the game. What starting five is that? What school starting five in the Sweet 16 had a player from St. Peter's, a player from Virginia Tech, a player from Ole Miss, a player from Louisville, and a player from Vanderbilt? You couldn't tell me. There's enough Auburn logos to go around that you would think there's 3 different teams that are Auburn. One of the schools, a G logo I've never seen before in my life, Georgia Tech, Duquesne, Morehead State, Auburn. What school is that? It's insane. The smaller schools in college athletics are now going to be the minor leagues of college football and college basketball because of the transfer portal and because the big schools are just outspending everybody else. And I had a friend yesterday go, I think it's eventually going to balance itself out. I thought so too, because I had the same argument of there's not enough money to go around. But the reality is, in the SEC, They don't have pro sports down there, and they don't care about pro sports down there. And these are their pro sports. And guess what boosters get to do when they're writing the checks and not the schools? They all get to be and play owner and general manager. And they're going to continue to write the checks, and they're going to continue to get some type of tax write-off, and they're not going to care because it's money that they'll just give away anyway because they got so much. And that's all that matters to them down there anyway. So, yeah, it's going to be almost impossible to compete at this level in Division I unless you separate the Power Four from the Group of Five or the mid-majors, or you fix this problem, which I don't think is going to be fixed because the people in charge are from the power schools, and the power schools make all the decisions. And what do you think the power schools are not going to do? Share with everybody else. This is exactly what the power schools are for, or what they have wanted for the last decade plus. They've hidden behind the fact that they wanted to pay the college players, but they knew they were the only ones that could do it, and they were just going to eliminate half of college athletics for the betterment of the Power Four, to keep all the money for the TV contracts. That's why they want to expand the NCAA tournament, to get more of their schools in so they can keep more of the money. I mean, it's insane how they're trying to hide behind the, oh, we want the betterment of the athletes with the, no, they don't. No, they don't. I don't know how USD, San Diego State, and UCSD are going to compete at this level. The fact that, and this is what's nuts about the NIL and the transfer portal, the fact that San Diego State went to the national championship a couple of years ago and has not been able to retain talent tells you everything you need to know about mid-majors and the death of Cinderellas and the death of what will probably be the greatest sporting event that ever was, and that was the NCAA tournament. You're going to see more Sweet 16s be loaded with Power 4 schools. You're going to see more, with the conference realignment, everything like that, more loading up on the top, and it's going to be like a mini professional league for football and basketball and everything in between. And there's going to be another division probably in the future. But with the schools not getting the big money on the TV contracts, I don't know how it's going to be a major player for them in the future. I mean, I think a lot of the mid-majors could do well in all the niche sports and the Olympic sports, because I don't think the Power 4 schools are pumping as much money and paying athletes for that, because, again, they only get a certain amount still, and that's going to go to football and basketball. But you got to try to find a bunch of big-time players at your school that can give a lot of money. I know a lot of people say this is, part of doing business, but this needs to change. I mean, the student athlete side of things for the transfer portal is ridiculous. Being able to be a free agent every year is insane. Could you imagine if the Padres were in the middle of the postseason and free agency started for all the teams that didn't have players, or for all the teams that didn't make the playoffs? They could start signing guys, and you could start grabbing guys for next year. And so in the middle of the postseason, instead of the Padres being focused on trying to beat the Dodgers or try to win a World Series, they're going to be focused on trying to, win next year and win games. I mean, that's what Sweet 16 teams are doing right now. It's what they had to do with the college football playoff. They're out there recruiting their own guys, making sure they don't enter the portal while they're playing in the postseason. They have to go start scouting and looking around to try to find players on the free agent market during the postseason. I mean, we thought the NFL free agency was nuts a couple of weeks ago. Imagine that opens up in the middle of the postseason. Are you kidding me? In what world does that make any sense? In what world does that make any sense? I'm not saying stop paying the players. I'm not saying now get rid of the transfer portal. But what I am saying is, put in some rules that every professional league has to keep the parity and keep the leagues competitive. This is why people have stopped watching the NBA at record numbers. a players-driven league that guys sit out and guys go to the teams that they just want to play on and everything in between, where they have all the power. It doesn't make for an entertaining league. Major League Baseball, what's the biggest problem that we're going to talk about at noon? Oh, there's no salary cap. And the best teams in Major League Baseball are spending money at enormous levels because they got a better TV contract and they can get any player that they want, and the other teams competing with not as big of a TV contract can't get those same players. Where have I heard that before? That's exactly what everybody's complaining about in Major League Baseball. What everybody's complaining about in Major League Baseball. Padres fans, you have been bitching about that for the last 3 months, and I have been right there with you. It's stupid. But now a lot of the same people are going like, it's just doing business in college athletics. What's the difference between the Dodgers and the SEC in terms of a TV contract? What's the difference? The SEC is getting a TV contract that's more than anybody else in college athletics, which has allowed them to buy any player that they want. And now all of a sudden it's like, that's just pleasure. That's just doing business. Dodgers do it and everybody's up in arms. This is ridiculous. I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. It's the same thing. Why are people getting turned off by baseball? Could you imagine if Major League Baseball just had everybody on a 1-year deal? What do you think the Dodgers would look like if everybody was on a 1-year deal every year? Is that a league you would watch? Would you watch that league? I wouldn't watch that league. Every year, everybody's on a 1-year contract. And the teams with the big TV deals went out and bought the best players every single year. Are you watching that league? No, you're not. You're not watching that league because you've already threatened to not watch it in baseball. I've already seen people complain about it. You look at the leagues that are the most entertaining, leagues like the NFL, they got a lot of rules like this to prevent things from happening, to ruin the product on the field. The NCAA tournament actually had some of the best ratings that they've ever had, surprisingly. I was surprised because I thought the product this weekend wasn't very good. But unless you're a fan of an SEC team or the Dodgers or the Yankees, you understand this is ridiculous. But even if I was a fan of those teams, is it really fun when you just have all the best players and you just win? I mean, that's fun to you. I don't think that's really fun. But the college athletics thing with NIL and the transfer portal, I mean, there's so many things they could fix. Transfer portal needs to be like a free agency window. Contracts and NIL signings when you sign players out of high school need to be like a 2-year deal. Transfer should only be once. You get one get out of jail free card. If you ended up going to a place that you want to go to, or if your coach leaves, you should get one transfer. And then if your coach leaves, go ahead. I mean, there's so many little tweaks that they could make to fix this problem, but they haven't done so yet. And it continues to escalate. I mean, you might as well just make them employees. I mean, if you want to pay all the kids, go ahead. Not against it. Just make sure you have a salary cap and guys are playing by the same rules. That's all that really matters. But they don't want they don't want to be employees because then they don't get to pick where they want to go all the time. They'd be, cuts and trades and all sorts of different avenues that you can walk down as employees of these schools with the schools paying the check. All of a sudden it would make a lot more sense on guys bouncing all over the place, looking for their best interest. I think that's fine. But for schools that have been built on developing talent like San Diego State and USD and UCSD, I just don't know how they survive because they're going to have to bring in a bunch of freshmen, train them up, and then they're going to leave, and you got to do the whole thing over again. It's almost better for San Diego State to not even recruit freshmen at all. I mean, they went and found Gwath, who didn't have a lot of offers, who was going to stay an extra year to a prep school year. San Diego State offered him. They developed him into a player that he is now, and he moves on for $1.7 million. I mean, I don't know how many times you could continue to do that. How many times can you continue to do that? Guys like Brian Dutcher shouldn't have to be doing videos to beg people for money. The guy's a great coach. He should be coaching. I mean, the strain that we've put on coaches to be fundraisers, general managers, and coaches is insane. It's crazy. That's why all these big-time coaches have left and have moved on because they don't want to do all this. They just want to coach. But Chip Kelly wanted to be an OC. Let go coach. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Tell me what you think. I think it's insanity. Eric Grouper got a lot of interesting things to say with Ben and Woods earlier this morning. I'm going to play some of that sound for you. Plus, tell you what's new at Petco Park coming in hour 2 on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. This hour on 97 through the fans brought to you by Frozen Ropes San Diego. Hey parents, here's a message from Coach Kurt. Frozen Ropes is your child 6 to 12 years old. Their baseball summer league is the perfect fit for your players starting June 16th through August 17th. Summer league includes 8 practices, 8 games. Register by March 31st and save $100. Go to SanDiegoFrozenRopes.com. Lots to unpack with the college athletic stuff and how it affects local teams. I mean, I don't. You thought it was hard filling Aztecs football games now. I mean, you've already seen guys for San Diego State that are local players play 1 year and end up moving on. I mean, one of the kids I coached at Cathedral, Marcus Ratcliffe, played a year at San Diego State as a freshman, started as a freshman. He's at A&M now. Moved around a lot. I mean, we've had a lot of guys move all over the place in college athletics. I saw a couple of chats or good messages in there. It's hard to look at some of them while I'm going through because it goes through so fast. But Will Vasquez, am I wrong here? If this is the new way of doing business in the NCAA, then why not make the student athletes sign contracts? That is actually, I think, coming very shortly. I think that's coming to college athletics. I know they've been talking about that when you sign your national letter of intent and with the way that you can offer NIL now before you arrive on campus. I think they're starting to put in contract, and a lot of this gets settled with the House settlement that everybody's opting into in April, and whether or not that goes through. And there's going to be a lot of different factors to that, and a lot of different moving parts. But if you do get to a point of signing guys to contracts, which I think that would fix it too. With the NIL and everything like that. Again, I said I'm not against paying the student athletes. I think paying them the amount of money that they get paid is a pretty high level for not being professional athletes. But that being said, I don't care if you pay them or not. I don't care if they're pros or college kids, student athletes or employees. Just make it balanced. So we're playing by the same rules. The biggest reason why people are complaining about the Dodgers, as I mentioned in the last hour. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973 if you want to join the show today. Be sure to follow us on social media at @B_SURP, at @BSURP. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and X. We post a lot of our content from our shows later on throughout the week in little small snack size portions, so you never miss anything part of the show. Be sure to also give us a like on the YouTube page. To all 81 of you that are watching on YouTube right now, hit the like button. Really helps their algorithm. We really appreciate it. It gets our product out there and our show out there. Again, still trying to grow the show in San Diego as we're still relatively new here on the airwaves. So we really appreciate that. And then if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our podcast. All of our shows are built into podcast form as well, broken up into hours, and then the full show all posted on, or should I say in podcast form, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, Odyssey app, wherever it may be. I went and used the rewind function today on the Odyssey app. It was great. I was able to rewind because I was getting ready for the show and I needed to do a couple of the things, and Eric Rupner from the Padres joined Ben and Woods, and I wanted to go back and listen to that interview. So I used the rewind app, listened to the whole thing. Great interview by Ben and Woods. And there's a lot of important nuggets in there that I think needs to be passed along. So we're going to play some of those clips of Eric Rupner and what he said on With the Morning Show. And I think he answered a lot of questions that people had that were asking for the last couple of months. And you knew it was only a matter of time before those questions were going to get answered. A lot of them involving the Padres TV deal. He answered some things about the new amenities at the ballpark, which we're going to get into in the next segment. But a lot of people had questions about the new control person of the San Diego Padres and John Seidler. And that is an area where people were a little bit, they didn't really want to give this guy a chance just because of a lot of different things. I mean, obviously, the guy grew up a Dodger fan because he grew up a grandson of one of the owners of the Dodgers. I mean, the whole family did. And so people were upset about that. They're upset about him not going to games and everything like that. And at least they were making a lot of these up. I thought Kevin Acee wrote a great article on John Seidler when it first came out, and Eric Krupner answered a lot of the questions I think fans had to explain that Padres are in good hands with John Seidler as their control person. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, John is a huge baseball fan. He's a huge Padres fan. He and his wife, Lori, moved to San Diego. This is their home. They were at a lot of games over the last, really decade plus. He's been a part of the ownership group since 2012. Obviously been more in the background supporting, his brother Peter over all those years. The oldest sibling in what is a very large Seidler family, and somebody who had a tremendous amount of respect from Peter. And I've really grown to respect and love working with John as well. And so I think Kevin Acee wrote a really great piece that kind of profiled the substance of who John is. But John's not about John. John's about the Padres. John's about us trying to put a consistently winning team on the field and break through and win our first World Series championship. He shares Peter's vision. He understands Peter's vision. He's stepping in with a high level of comfort and experience with the current leadership team, having been a part of the ownership group since 2012, and really completely aligned with what we've been doing for the last several years and what we want to continue to do, which is put a winning playoff caliber and championship caliber team on the field every year. So, I think if the fans have enjoyed what's been going on the last few years with the Padres, it's going to be more of the same. And I think the calling card for John's leadership style is quiet confidence, hard work, smart, very experienced business executive. And I think we're really fortunate that he is able to step in and really, have a seamless transition.
He said everything that was basically said in the Kevin Acee article. I mean, I think everything that John Seidler mentioned in that article as well was very truthful. And he opened up about a lot of things. And I think it's business as usual. I don't think it's going to be a drastic change. I think a lot of people just assumed that was going to be the case, with a new control person. I think a lot of people were afraid that the Padres weren't going to spend any money anymore because of Peter's passing and where the Padres are at financially and everything like that. But as we've mentioned multiple times, it's all the same. In fact, regardless if Peter was still alive and in charge now or not, it was still going to be the same kind of spending. That has not changed. And it is business as usual for the San Diego Padres. I mean, this was coming eventually that they had to slow down the spending a little bit. And so it's not going to change. What the Padres have done and what they're doing is not going to change with John in control. He is a San Diegan now, moved down here with his wife, and hopefully walks around a little bit more and introduce himself to you Padre fans. But he's a guy that doesn't want to be in the limelight. I don't blame him for that. I think the best owners in sports are the ones that write checks and don't say anything. Those are the best owners in sports. The worst owners in sports are guys that make it about them and are blinded by their own fame of being the center of attention and decide not to spend money. You don't want the owner in the news because he's the guy like Fisher with the A's, or he is like Dean Spanos and he's in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. You don't even want to know what this guy is. You just want to write the check, don't say anything. He doesn't want to be in the limelight, him and his wife. I don't blame him. Doesn't need to be. But that's a little bit about the new control person in John Seidler. A couple other things I find really interesting. In fact, we're going to go deeper into this later on in the show because I do think it's a looming and a gigantic problem for the San Diego Padres. Not really the Padres. I think it's more of a problem for Major League Baseball. But here's what Eric Krupner had to say about the Padres TV deal. Obviously, it's a big looming discussion with the regional sports networks going under, and they'll be taking over some of them, and the differences with payroll for a lot of teams because they have better TV contracts. Here's the latest update we have on what it's going to be like for the Padres for Padres TV.
Yeah, so two-part question. Let me take it in both parts. Start with the the update going into opening day. We expect that our games are going to be available on all of the local cable satellite streaming options that we had available last year. When we moved to MLB Media, that was a huge silver lining in the cloud of RSN bankruptcy that led us to that point. And the silver lining is that for the first time, we had a streaming option in market without local market blackout. And we led all Major League Baseball teams last year with over 47,000 paid subscribers. So I think that's proof positive that in our market, that's a product type that our fans highly value. They love the flexibility of a month-to-month commitment and the ability to watch Padres games without a local market blackout, with the exception of, national TV games that are picked up. So, Padres.com/tune in is going to be the same landing page that we've used for the last couple of years to educate our fans on exactly where they can watch the games and what channels to go to. So we'd encourage fans to continue to stay dialed into that as we approach Thursday. And then we do anticipate sometime after opening day being able to give some specifics on a first time ever package of games that'll be available OTA free of charge, both in San Diego and in the northern Baja California region. So we're excited for that, which is going to expand our reach and make our games more available to fans than they ever have been before. Sort of the larger question that you posed regarding where do we go as an industry with, as you appropriately observe, a huge discrepancy between the media revenue that's generated in some local markets versus others. That's a league level question. That's one that I'm not going to get too deep into right now. It calls into question, future CBA negotiations and strategy at a level that's above my pay grade. I'm a part of those conversations, but not in a position to speak on them definitively. But I do think that you see some pretty extreme discrepancies that lead to competitive advantages and disadvantages across markets. And I do think for our game to be the very best it can be in the intermediate and long term, we need to find solutions to that. And I am optimistic that if solutions come, the Padres are going to benefit more than any other market and any other team.
I thought that was very significant. I thought that was the most significant thing that he talked to, aside from, obviously the upgrades at Petco Park, which we're going to talk about next. But that last part of that two-part question, even though nobody's allowed to talk about it, what was kind of hinted by Eric Grupner is very important for Major League Baseball, and it tells me a lot. And we're going to talk about that later on in the show. You're going to have to stay tuned to that, because that is the most important thing that he said in the entire interview, is that second part question. And we're going to get into that. We also will find out what's going on new at Petco Park in 2025. Plus, we do have another Eric Grupner clip that we were going to get to next about the payroll. How's the payroll going to be for the Padres in the future? He's got some answers on that when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:18 on a Tuesday. Braden Surprenant Show. My guy Chris called in. I was going to get to him, and Chris hung up. Come on, Chris. Chris in Claremont, give me a call back. Want to talk some NIL stuff. I had to have a lot of people that have reached out. Again, if you want to reach into the show and contact the show, there's multiple ways to do it. I know a lot of people, especially that younger generation, the Gen Z millennial group, likes to do things a little bit differently than pick up the phone and call. I'm one of those people too. I've never called into a radio show in my time, but you can still reach us at B_SURP at BSURP, and I'll be able to read your tweets on the air. A couple of things that I saw. Taylor Davis on X, Tay13 GUP. I could agree more on NIL. St. Francis, Pennsylvania is moving from D1 to D3 because they can't compete financially. I did see that today. So St. Francis, who was a 16 seed, played in one of the play-in games. That was the play-in game before San Diego State played in the NCAA tournament in Dayton, Ohio. As a D1 school, have now said, we're going to D3. We don't want to do this anymore. Interesting to see. The other one we got, Brian D. Fuller. I like BSERP idea of 2-year minimum contracts for incoming freshmen. If coach leaves under contract, you are allowed to transfer. All these kids have agents. They need to get busy and start collecting the 10%. The thing is with the contracts, or should I say the agents, it gets 10%. Dude, some of these agents are getting like 20, 25% of earnings from these kids. Absolute robbery. I don't have the clip right now. I'd have to go back and find it. I've played it before. But there's a clip of Colorado State head football coach who played with one of the coaches on that I coached with at Cathedral. It was a former Charger in Quinn Early. But the head football coach in Jay Norvell was talking about the fight that they have to do to keep their own players. He said, this is what happens. There's people that aren't even licensed agents, right? Not even licensed agents that have gone out, and what they do is they find these kids at mid-major schools, and they go, take Adam Klug, for example. So they find some, quarterback Adam Klug at Fresno State. And he's playing pretty well. And so these people will go out and start asking around to the other schools, how much money would you give Adam Klug if he enters the transfer portal? And so they call the SEC schools, right? Or all the Big 10 schools, Big 12 schools, Power 5 schools. One school would say, give him $100,000. We'll give him 150. We'll give him 200. We'll give him 125. We'll give him this. Reports back, gets all the information, slides into Klug's DMs, and goes, I'm an agent. I can get you $200,000 if you enter the transfer portal. I'm going to take, I'll take 20%, enter the transfer portal, we'll make it happen. That is an ongoing thing right now in college football and college basketball. And these non-agents are getting these deals. They're convincing kids to enter the portal for schools to pick up. They get them the deal that they said they were going to get them, or maybe slightly less. Because a lot of the times they get kind of hosed on how much money that they got offered. And then they take 20% of it. I mean, with the NFL Players Association agents, they get 5% of contracts. You guys get 20%. 20% of these kids' contracts. It's insane. Insane. Other things out there. Chris, who actually had to hang up, he said, sorry to get back to work. Just wondering if you guys heard on the Doug Gottlieb show last night talking about a posting fee for portal athletes. I think that would be a great way for Power 5 money to trickle down to smaller conferences. I think it's a good idea. I do think that's a good idea. A posting fee like they have in Japan. It's not a bad idea. It would make kids less enticed to go to the portal because not everybody would probably be worth paying a posting fee for. And all of a sudden you spread the love a little bit with the money. It's not a bad idea. This is all collective bargaining agreement things that need to go down that you can't make with a group of players because they don't have an association, because they don't have a union, because they're not employees. Everything that comes with this. This is why you have the rules that you have in professional sports. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. 619 Bengals fan. So who's starting left field for the Padres this year? That'd be Jason Hayward. And when a lefty pitches, it will be Lockridge. Thanks for the question. All right, back to the phones. Clay in the South Bay lead things off with the Braden Surprenant Show. Clay, what's going on, man?
And Braden, this NIL stuff, I can't agree with you more. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when it started, it was going to write the end to college sports the way we enjoy them. But getting to all this money, I mean, I still don't understand if you've got your name, image, and likeness that you're out there trying to get money for, and you're at, let's say, just say San Diego State, and you're doing really well here, and that's where your name, your image, and your likeness is being associated to. How is it that you can just go out in a portal that was created by the NCAA and be yanked away by money from some other schools, boosters, and whatever? I really think if they wanted to do it right, the NCAA should have stepped up, and they should have put caps on everything, including how much can be gained by anybody leaving one school to another, or how much can be offered to any one player. They should have capped it all so everybody could be on the same playing field. I mean, this is just lunacy, thinking that it's going to stop unless somebody steps in and fixes the broken system.
Clay, I totally agree with you, and Clay, I appreciate the phone call. The thing is, Clay, is while they should have been doing that, they were arguing that they had amateur athletes and they shouldn't get paid at all. I mean, that's the biggest problem. Instead of the NCAA getting in front of all of this, and again, I think there's blame to go around for everybody. I think the players have some blame. I think the NCAA has some blame. I think the coaches have some blame. I think the big TV companies have some blame. They're all holding that golden goose in their right hand with the axe in their left. But instead of trying to fight against it the whole time, they should have been getting out in front and establishing rules to try to keep it an even playing field and try to get the most for their athletes if they are so built on student athlete. I mean, there's so many things they could have done, so many things they can continue to do, but now they just have no power that they don't do anything anymore anyway. And they're hoping Congress can save them. And Congress has their own battles that they have to deal with. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Speaking of lunacy, I saw this report from On3 about Stanford firing their head football coach, Troy Taylor. General manager Andrew Luck made the decision. Why are you firing your head football coach in March? Who are you going to go get? What are we doing, Andrew Luck? The general manager thing is right around the corner right now, too. I mean, there's a lot of schools that have. San Diego State finally got a general manager. And they're one of the early schools to get a GM for their college football programs. I didn't know that was the thing. I didn't know the GM did have that kind of power at the college level. I mean, obviously they do in the NFL. What an interesting development that is. Stanford has fired their head football coach, Troy Taylor. General manager Andrew Luck made the decision. Firing him in March, dude. Spring ball starts for most schools in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. You want to talk about insane. I mean, that is insane. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Get back to your phone calls when we come back. Plus, what's new at Petco Park. And Jackson Merrill wants to stay in San Diego long term. But has he played his way out of San Diego? Can they even afford him? I'll tell you what I think when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:34 on a Tuesday. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We're going to dive into more Padres baseball here in just a little bit. I mean, the NIL talk has been huge today, obviously, because Magoon Gwath left in the transfer portal yesterday. And what's the future of San Diego State athletics with this? I mean, Brian Dutcher's going to do a great job in refilling his team. There's just such a difference in size with some of the Power 4 schools. And while you have 16 Power 4 schools in the Sweet 16 right now. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We're going to get to the conversation about the new features at Petco Park, as well as Jackson Merrill in just a little bit. First, I want to get back to the phones. Let's get out to Chula Vista where Kevin wants to join. Kevin, what's going on? How's your Tuesday?
Well, first of all, kudos to Clay. He's spot on. This NIL thing was started by the politicians in California, if you recall. And if anybody is expecting politicians or the NCAA, which is feckless, to bail this situation out, they're out of their minds. They're not capable. They don't have the authority. They don't have the intelligence. So where we're at, Braden, is we're on financial Armageddon watch. You're absolutely right. It's just a matter of time before this whole Ponzi scheme collapses, and that's basically what it is. I can make an argument, I think quite factually, that these kids that are making money off of the NIL, they owe us, the taxpayers, the fans, and the students, a debt, because without us, they didn't get here in the first place, right? So if you're saying that, and if everybody's saying that, well, these kids deserve money. Well, they only get that money because of the institutions that were already established. They didn't establish the institution. They didn't establish the name. We all did. So if they're not going to show loyalty back to us, we don't need to show loyalty back to them. Don't let the door hit you in the fanny going out. That's basically the way I feel about it. I'm sick of it. It's just a mess. I don't see any solution coming because I don't think anybody's got the guts or the common sense to do the right thing. That's where we're at in college sports right now. And, San Diego State, God bless them. I'm an alum, but you know what? It's just a matter of time before the fans figure this all out. This is a scheme that's going nowhere.
Kevin, I totally agree with you. It's a good phone call. I really appreciate it. Here's the deal. A lot of people don't understand either. Do most college athletics and college fans, do they go to the games because of the athletes, or do they go to the games because of the logos of the jerseys that they wear? I think that's a fair question to ask. Am I a big San Diego State fan growing up because of all the players that they've had? Or because my dad went to the school and I have a connection to the logo? I think you say the same thing about how my mom treats her alma mater in Arizona. She couldn't tell you a single player on Arizona's team. She's finally figured out who Caleb Love is and some of the new players. She's an Arizona Wildcat alumni, and she watches Arizona athletics because she went to the school. And she will continue to root for Arizona because she went to the school, regardless of who's playing. I Need Money, Adam Paul, Adam in the chat could all suit up for Arizona tomorrow. And guess what? Dawn Surprenant still watching Arizona athletics. She is. I'm doing the same thing with TCU. I support all TCU athletics. Am I more inclined to watch TCU women's basketball because Haley Van Lith is on the team and she's one of the better players? Yeah, I'd say so. But at the same time, I'm watching because that's the school I went to. So Kevin is on that train. 100%. A lot of it has to do with the logo. And why people support, because it's the team in town and it is the school they went to and everything like that. The logo has a lot to do with it as well. I mean, they'll always find other players. And here's the thing. If they stop paying players and they decided to do a different league in which there was a paid players league and a non-paid players league, If the school that you went to was in the non-paid players league, you're probably still watching that school because it's the school you went to. I don't necessarily know if I would go find a team to root for in the paid league if my school was not in said paid league. So there is some of that as well. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. There's another thing we had to get to with Eric Grupner that we're going to get to first on the current and future payroll of the Padres. And then we're going to dive into some of the new amenities at Petco Park for everybody that's going to opening day. And I do want to mention that we will be out at Baja Rick's on opening day. You can join 97 through the fan at Baja Rick's at 176th Avenue across from the Hard Rock as we celebrate opening day this Thursday. Ben Woods will broadcast beginning at 6 a.m., followed by the Braden Surprenant Show until noon. We'll have deals on Coors Light, Blue Moon, and Topo Chico, plus a special breakfast menu and $10 foot-long TJ Dogs and special Blowfish Tequila premium margaritas. Join 97 through the fan at Baja Rick's from 6 a.m. to noon this Thursday for opening day. Put the picture out on social media. You can check it out on my social media page at B_SURP, at BSURP. Be sure to come check us out on Thursday. We'll also have another show on Saturday we'll talk about later on in this show. But let's get to the last thing that is really that Eric Grupner talked about that was significant. There's another one that we're going to replay at noon. But Eric Grupner on the current and future payroll for the San Diego Padres, as mentioned on the Ben and Wood Show.
So the larger question that you posed regarding where do we go as an industry with, as you appropriately observe, a huge discrepancy between the media revenue that's generated in some local markets versus others. That's a league level question. That's one that I'm not going to get too deep into right now. It calls into question, future CBA negotiations and strategy at a level that's above my pay grade. I'm a part of those conversations, but not in a position to speak on them definitively. But I do think that you see some pretty extreme discrepancies that lead to competitive advantages and disadvantages across markets. And I do think for our game to be the very best it can be in the intermediate and long term, we need to find solutions to that. And I am optimistic that if solutions come, the Padres are going to benefit more than any other market and any other team.
So that's a lot to do with the TV contract and everything like that, and how, Major League Baseball's got this looming problem with the TV contracts and everything like that. The payroll is something else that I wanted to dive into a little bit before we get to the sports thread. The future payroll of the San Diego Padres. There was an article today in the Union Tribune that will break down, probably tomorrow, about how the Padres as a small market have been able to compete at a high level, but current payroll, future payroll. Here's what Eric Grupner had to say.
And we're exactly where we had hoped to be in terms of payroll this year. That was a plan that was developed under Peter's leadership, and we've been executing against it consistently for the last several years. And we're going to continue to execute against that plan. Tomorrow's not guaranteed to any of us in any aspect or regard, including, a continued level of fan support that we've had and really benefited from these last several years. Our fans, just want to pause there and make sure this message gets across loud and clear. We have the best fans in baseball. We could not be more grateful for our fans for the level of support that they've brought, the passionate energy and electric environment that they create at Petco Park. And we absolutely want to put everything that we can into this team from a payroll perspective every year, with the goal of remaining as competitive as possible and winning a World Series championship. So, what is that going to look like in the years to come? I hope it continues to go to form and continues to be consistent with the plan that we've set to remain competitive year in and year out. I think we have everything that we need to be able to do that, but we've got to continue to execute. We've got to put a team on the field that can play winning championship caliber baseball.
And that's what I think they're going to be able to do. Interesting with the payroll. I do want to get to, and we got to get to the sports thread. And so we'll kind of start this and then get back to it in the noon hour. Specifically, we'll dive into the into the food a little bit later, but a lot of different new buildings and everything and renovations at Petco Park to go check out. And we put the page up on the YouTube page. Brand new renovation, the Western Metal Supply Company building, which, continuing the Padres' longstanding and ongoing commitment to maintain and improve Petco Park. Multi-million-dollar renovation of Western Metal Supply Company building, which was following the completion of the 2024 postseason. They redid the New Era Team Store on the first floor. They redid the Budweiser loft, on the third floor. It's open to the public. Are we still doing our pregame shows there? Yeah, pregame show with Sam Levitt will be up there. Again, open to the public if you have a ticket, as long as there's not a private event going on. But they've revamped that area to make it really nice. That's always a great place to go get a drink before the game. They usually have your member happy hour deals that they do. The bar up there also does that, so that's a great place to check out. And then the new rooftop, which is includes a new grand staircase that will, for the first time, connect the Budweiser loft directly to the fully renovated Western Metal rooftop. It's designed to obviously elevate and the game day experience. And the remodeled rooftop features a 4,000 square foot raised deck that offers all new sight lines into the playing field for increased capacity and more guests in the space. That's for like bigger events, and they can do private events and everything like that. So pretty cool amenities with the brand new Western Metal Supply Company building that my grandfather used to go get building supplies from back in the day. I mean, it's a pretty cool landmark that's part of Petco Park. There's nothing like it in Major League Baseball to have just a building downtown part of the stadium. I think it's one of the coolest parts of Petco Park, and the fact that they've made it a cool place to hang out to is really awesome. So I can't wait to check that out coming up on Thursday. We'll talk about the food in just a little bit, but it's time to get to the sports thread, and we got some big news that involves the San Diego Padres division.
You know that group chat, the one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me?
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
Adam Klug joining us to give us the latest on the Sports Thread, 5 top stories in sports that we couldn't get to. And here's Adam Klug.
Braden, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well.
Get right after it, shall we?
Number 1.
Tough news out of the NL West as Diamondback starter Jordan Montgomery told reporters today that he will undergo Tommy John surgery, ending his season before it ever began. Montgomery famously struggled after signing a big contract late last year with the D-backs, and then their owner criticized the signing that he pushed on the front office after the season ended, leading to speculation about Montgomery being traded this offseason, which never materialized. Considering Montgomery's struggles last year, rank this injury on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of its impact on Arizona's playoff hopes.
I would say even though he didn't play that well last year, I would say it's probably a 6 or a 7. I think that's a big problem for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, he was one of the players that on the trade block, I thought the Padres might be interested in potentially trading for to take a good player off of a team that is in your division that they didn't want anymore. Maybe you flip a contract back and see where it goes from there. But I think this is a significant injury for the Arizona Diamondbacks, as he was supposed to be part of that rotation, and now all of a sudden everybody moves up one spot in that rotation. A big team that the Padres have to deal with in 2025 to make the postseason.
Number 2.
Sad news out of the world of college basketball on the women's side, as USC Trojan star Juju Watkins tore her ACL in last night's second-round matchup against Mississippi State, and she will now miss the rest of the NCAA tournament. Watkins was an All-American and helped the Trojans earn a number 1 seed in the tourney. Do you give USC any shot of winning the national championship without Juju Watkins?
I give him a slight shot because you never know what happens. But the thing with women's college basketball is the level at the top and the talent at the top is there's such a big drop-off after that. In order for SC to be part of that group up at the top, they need Juju Watkins as part of that squad. And without her being on the team, or being able to finish at this point in the year with her injury. I don't think they have a great chance. I don't think they can beat South Carolina with that injury. We'll see if they can beat UConn with that injury. Plus, got to watch out for those Horned Frogs and Haley Van Lith, number 2 seed. Better watch out.
Good day when you get a Horned Frogs reference in, huh?
That's right. Check the box. Everybody that plays the drinking game at home, take a drink.
Number 3.
You've talked a lot about the future of college sports in the wake of NIL, and a real-life example is playing out right in front of our eyes with St. Francis. After making the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1991 and losing in the first 4 in a wild finish against Alabama State, St. Francis announced that they're moving all of their athletics to Division III beginning in 2026, citing changes in the national landscape. Yes, they're skipping Division II and going right to Division III.
Sometimes the Division II has to do with local, whether or not there's enough Division II schools around them to play and everything like that. So, but they don't want to deal with the NIL. They don't want to deal with having to try to compete at a high level. It's very expensive to run an athletic department at the D1 level with everything involved. They're not the first, and they won't be the last to move down out of Division I, as you've seen with a lot of other schools throughout college athletics. I wouldn't be surprised if more schools don't decide to do this themselves.
Well,
So
you answered the question I was going to ask of, is this going to be the blueprint for more schools moving forward and become a trend?
I think so. I think you're going to get less schools like UCSD that are going to bump up to D1, and you're going to get more schools like St. Francis that are going to bump down lower divisions, be like, look, we're just going to do scholarships, and we're cool being down at this level. We don't need to be in the NCAA tournament for D1. We'll do it in D3.
Number 4.
Probable number 1 overall pick Cam Ward worked out for many NFL executives at Miami's Pro Day yesterday and met with the Tennessee Titans brass, who hold the number 1 pick in next month's draft. Ward told the Titans he would solidify his standing as the top overall pick with yesterday's performance. Adam Schefter tweeted this morning that the Titans have become increasingly impressed with Ward and will listen to trade offers for the number 1 pick, but now would need an even bigger package to move said pick. If you were the Titans, what would you do with the number 1 overall pick?
I draft lineman. I have to look at the draft, overall draft board and everything like that, and got to dive into it a little bit more. But if you're the Titans, they're not. I add the quarterback last. I like to add the quarterback last. So you get 5 full years of his rookie deal with a team built around him, not trying to have him go through growing pains for a couple of different seasons, and then by the time you finally get a team assembled, you got 1 or 2 shots at it before you have to pay him a big contract. It never works out that well for NFL teams that draft the quarterback first, and the Titans are far away from being a quarterback away from being a playoff contender.
Smart strategy, wrong answer to the question. I asked what you would do with the number 1 pick. If you're going to take a lineman and not the quarterback, you trade the number 1 pick.
Trade the number 1 pick.
Accumulate assets.
More
take the lineman
picks
you would have taken at 1 and add the draft picks.
Yeah,
that's how you play an NFL GM.
Number 5.
Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua became an immediate star after being selected in the 5th round in 2023, and apparently his NFL career will be short-lived if he has things his way. Nacua appeared on the Join the Lobby podcast and had this to say about his NFL future.
At what point do you know, when to retire, right? And then, what do you do after?
I want to retire at the age of 30. I'm 23 right now. I'm going into year 3. I think of Aaron Donald, to go out at the top, I think it would be super cool, but then also be I want to have a big family. Just I want to have at least a starting 5. I'm I came from a big family.
So he said he want 5.
I need 5 boys. I need 5 boys for sure.
That's cool.
But also be man, I want to be able to be a part of their lives and be as active as I can with them. So I don't want to be. The injuries are something that you can't control part of the game. So you never know. Hopefully the rest of your career go healthy. But you have shoulder surgery, you have knee surgery, you have ankle, and be by the time my kids could be 18, I could be barely walking if I if you play the game and you sustain all the injuries and stuff like that. But I want to retire early.
What's your reaction to Puka's plan?
He's 23 right now, right? Retiring at 30 gives him, 7, 8, 9, almost, 9-year career. I could see a lot of other NFL guys potentially doing this in the future. Make a lot of good money. Work enough to make money to live off of the rest of your life, enjoy your life at age 30 as a retired, individual, go find different hobbies and different things you want to do. You can have a second career and raise a family. Good for him. If you could do that in life, he is winning at life. To be able to live wherever he wants, raise a family, not have to worry about work, and the fresher you can keep your body after playing in a gladiator sport like the NFL, I think the better. So more power to him. I don't mind that at all. And that's today's sports thread. New food items we got to get to when we come back. I mean, we're going to try to talk about that. I keep teasing that, but we're going to get to that. And plus, the biggest looming problem for Major League Baseball in the next CBA and later on to come. They ranked every team in Major League Baseball to start the season. Where the Padres are at, who are they competing with for a playoff spot? We'll talk about that at 12:30 as the Braden Surprenant Show rolls on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Lunchtime hour on a Tuesday, a couple of days before opening day here in San Diego. San Diego Padres, Atlanta Braves, 1:10 start on Thursday. We will be live at Baja Rick's leading up to the pregame show and then eventually first pitch against the Atlanta Braves. Join myself as well as Ben and Woods out at Baja Rick's up on Thursday. Ben and Woods will be out there with Ben, Woods, and Paul. They will start their show at 6 in the morning. They'll go to about 10 o'clock. I will be on from 10 to 2, or not, sorry, to 2, 10 to noon before the Padres pregame show is Sam Levitt, which will be hosted at the Loft at Petco Park, and then first pitch between the Padres and the Atlanta Braves. We are a couple of days away now from opening day in America's finest city. A lot of great deals happening with that Baja Rick's live remote. Again, it's at 170 6th Avenue across from the Hard Rock as we celebrate opening day this Thursday. Again, it will start at 6 a.m. with Ben and Woods. I'll be on from 10 to noon. Have deals on Coors Light, Blue Moon, Topo Chico, plus a special breakfast menu and $10 footlong TJ Dogs, special Blowfish Tequila Premium Margaritas. Join 97 through the Fan at Baja Rick's from 6 a.m. to noon this Thursday for opening day. Gonna be a fun time.
Do you want to know what we're giving away?
We got giveaways too. No, I don't know what those are.
Come join us at Baja Rick's. Ben and Woods will have an autographed Robert Suarez jersey to give away, and you will have a signed Randy Vasquez baseball to give away.
Randy Vasquez baseball
sir.
to give away. Randy Vasquez made the starting rotation.
He sure did.
You got a starting pitching guy in the starting rotation autographed baseball you can win at Baja Rick's, and we only have a 2-hour show, so better likelihood for you to be able to win the prize. EC money. You guys giving away opening day tickets. We're not. But you might be able to win the Randy Vasquez ball EC money if you show up. Last night, I got to mention EC money. My guy EC money in the chat. They're going to have, I don't know what the other specials are, but EC money in the chat. Guy that works at Santee Sportsplex, had some extra tokens. He came out to Dave & Buster's and came to support. He came after my show, which is fine. I went to see a little bit of the Scraby show and gave me for my birthday, a handful of Sportsplex tokens to buy myself a drink, or the team a drink at the Sportsplex in Poway, which I was very thankful for. And I was going to do that last night, EC money, except for the fact I left all the tokens in my room at my house, and I forgot to bring them to the Sportsplex. So next week, I'm going to have to do that as I forgot all the tokens last night. So I appreciate the deal, though. Big appreciation. EC Money was in attendance at Dave & Buster's last week. Love seeing you guys at the live remotes. Again, we will be out there at Baja Rick's. Be sure to come by and say hi before you're entering the stadium. A little bit early of a game for opening day, so it'll be perfect for us. Being on from 10 to noon. And again, we're giving away a Randy Vasquez signed baseball in that time slot. So it should be a fun time on opening day. Really looking forward to it. Lots of new things at Petco Park, as mentioned before. We talked about the brand new renovations at the for the Western Metal Supply Company building, but also we got a lot of new food items coming to Petco Park this season. Now, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, Adam, Sam Levitt will be out there getting the full tour of everything new and a little sneak peek of the food and everything at Petco Park coming up this season. He will be out there tomorrow, so be sure to stay tuned to our social media pages at 97.3 The Fan SD to check out the images of a lot of these potential food items. But there's a lot of new things that Eric Rupert talked about on with Ben and Woods that we'll go through right now. But a lot of new things for the food for Petco Park, and a lot of people are really into this. What's new this year? There's a lot of new restaurants this year at Petco Park. Deckman's at the Draft, in partnership with Michelin-starred chef Drew Deckman of 3131 by Deckman's in North Park. Draft by Ballast Point, which is located just above the Seaside Market, which is on the second level, which will be the garden level above Section 107, the Ballast Point over there. They're going to be offering this Deckman's at the Draft by Michelin-starred chef Drew Deckman. They will be offering A new menu of fresh seafood dishes, including fish tacos, fresh ceviche, Baja fries, carnitas wings, and fresh oysters. Again, that will be at Draft by Ballast Point. It's going to be called Deckman's at the Draft. So a lot of good food there. I tried, they had birria egg rolls last year, and I thought those were incredible. But anyway, that will be one of the new items. They're going to have Monster Coffee there this year at Petco Park. San Diego born Monster Coffee, which in 2020 was named the Micro Roaster of the Year by Roast Magazine, will be serving for the first time at Petco Park a full line of espresso drink, coffee blends, cold brew espresso, and other specialty drinks in a newly created location in the Mercado. Their coffee will also be available in select concession stands in premium areas throughout the ballpark, the Mercado, Section 104, and other locations. I think this one's great. Now, the Mini Donut Company, it is a San Diego-born company, and they have dropped stuff off at our office before, and I love it. I like donuts, but the problem with donuts is one donut could totally wreck your day, like a full-size donut. You have two, you're taking a nap. You're not going to be productive the rest of the day. The Mini Donut Company is great because, again, they're just a bunch of mini donuts, but they're not like donut holes. They're literally just mini donuts, and they're bunch of different flavors, including glaze, cinnamon sugar. They have my favorite, which is any type of donut frosted with sprinkles. And they're bite-sized donuts in a variety of flavors. I always like trying a bunch of different donuts when you bring them to the office, but I don't want to have a full donut of each. In fact, I usually cut the donuts in half, which might be a party foul. JR, the engineer, has complained about that. Just eat the whole flipping donut. I'm like, no, I don't want the whole donut. I just want a little taste here and there. I want one donut with a bunch of different flavors. Mini Donut Company is perfect for that. 6-year-old San Diego-born dessert company bakes bite-sized donuts in a variety of flavors, including glaze, cinnamon sugar, frosted sprinkles. They'll be at Petco Park, Section 109. A little bit of a mix-up. Donuts are that's kind of a new trend again. I've been to a couple weddings now where the dessert is kind of like a donut guy, and they're making like fresh donuts. This is a new kind of trendy thing again. So you're going to have mini bite-sized donuts from the Mini Donut Company, Section 109, and all the Petco Park suites. So if you have a suite or your company got a suite, part of the catering that you can order are some of the mini donuts for the Mini Donut Company. So that's phenomenal. I'm actually looking forward to that. I might actually have that on opening day. I might go down from the press box to the donut company, a Mini Donut Company, and get some mini donuts. I think that's an awesome addition. At Teaspoon, which is founded by Amy Lai. Teaspoon has 3 North County locations in Carlsbad, Escondido, and Forest Ranch. Shop will serve 3 different flavors of tea and boba, a rotating basis, including Thai tea, house milk tea, silky mango, mango on fire, guava sunset, and caramel cream. That will be in Gallagher Square. So you can get boba tea in Gallagher Square, which is cool. And then, of course, the Petco Park exclusive. So Delaware North is the company that is the main service provider for food at Petco. So a lot of like the hot dogs and the nachos and everything like that. But they do have some of their own restaurants in the park as well. And some of those are including some new menu items. New offerings including a Baja lobster roll, lobster roll, but Baja style. Cooked on a Santa Maria grill at Pacifico in the Power Alley. Classic Tijuana-style bacon-wrapped hot dog available at the Elote Michelada cart in Section 100. And 3 different sliders that have been added, including the SoCal, the Bacon Blue, and the Pretzel Beer Cheese, all of which can be found at the Kona Big Wave Patio on the terrace level. Now, on this article that I have pulled up, there should be a little bit better of a view to see those particular items in general. And there we go. So that looks like on the far left, that looks like the pretzel beer cheese slider. And then they have obviously the TJ dog and then the lobster rolls on the far right. So those are some of the things that would, are put by Delaware North. So some of the new things that you could check out. If it's Baja style, you can't say lobster. Anytime you got to say lobster. So that's what some of the images look like. The Bacon Blue slider and the SoCal slider are some of the other new items too. Here's a picture of that in particular. Again, So the Bacon Blue slider in the foreground and the SoCal slider in the background for everybody that's watching on YouTube. And I specifically did this at noon because I know you guys would all be hungry for opening day cuisine. So that's a look at that in particular. Those are some of the new food items. Other returning vendors that I think a lot of people are always worried about. Right, you have some of your vendors, your favorite vendors there as well. One of the hot dogs on here that I forgot to mention, I'm actually going to show it right now, is the Lob Dog. Grilled lobster topped hot dog is one of the new items that will be served at Petco Park during the 2025 San Diego Padres season. That is the Lob Dog right there. So it is a hot dog lobster roll with a little lemon wedge on the side that you can put on the lobster roll. Baja style lobster and a hot dog. The best of both worlds. You got the TJ dog and the lobster roll together. Now I'm starving. Returning food vendors. Ann's Dry Cleaning. Has anybody heard Ann's Dry Cleaning? It is ice cream, Adam. Ann's Dry Cleaning is named America's #1 ice cream by USA Today. It returns for its second season with a different name, Ann's Athletic Field Services, to go with a little bit of a baseball twist. They will have baseball-themed gelato flavors, including chalk, clay, and sand. It's probably not going to taste like chalk, clay, or sand. It's probably some great things of like peanut butter or chocolate or something like that. Chalk, clay, and sand. That will be in section 104 in the Mercado area of the main concourse on the field level. The Mercado area is that area that has the Hodads and the Buena Forqueta and everything like that, and the sushi place where they're all kind of combined in section 104. Classic ballpark eats will be around the stadium. Blue Water Seafood and Market Grill is back. San Diego restaurant serves grilled fish tacos on corn tortillas and sandwiches. They're inside the 394 restaurant in the terrace level. Board and Brew is back at Petco Park. San Diego sandwich chain known for its turcado, tub of tuna sub, and beef sandwiches. Of course, the sauce. Got to get the sauce on the side. Get extra sauce. Always get the sauce. Section 205, Board and Brew. One of the best sandwiches in town. Carnitas Snack Shack, North Park Born chain, known for its pork-centric approach to sandwiches, burgers, tacos, and burritos. That's back in section 128. Loading Mexican Street Corn, Petco Park's main concierge, Delaware North, opened this Mexican street food cart last year. It's delicious. Elote Corn and Pop Rocks was a smash. They're in section 100. Gaglione Brothers is back, too. They get yourself a Philly cheesesteak. San Diego born, family-owned sandwich shop, specializes in cheesesteaks and hoagies, as well as garlic fries. I personally think it's the best Philly cheesesteak in town, Gaglione Brothers. A lot of different ways to eat Gaglione Brothers. You got the relish is great. The Italian mustard is the way to go. Got to get the Italian mustard on the Gaglione Philly cheesesteak. And you go with onions, and you got to get regular cheese. American cheese is fine. Section 124 and 319 for Gaglione Brothers. Gelati and Picati, South Park's beloved Buena Forqueta, is serving a traditional margarita pizza, meat lovers, vegetarian pizza, Roman-style square slices, as well as Italian-style gelato. They're behind home plate in the Mercado area, the main concourse on the field level. Gelati and Picati, it's actually Buena Forqueta, but just a different name. Grano Barbecue's back. They took over for Phil's Barbecue at the first base spot last season, serving Texas-style barbecue specialties and margaritas. Hodads is back. Don't need to explain Hodads. You guys know what that is. Fast food, Jack in the Box will be in section 323 again. Kona Big Wave Patio, home of Kona Brewing, and the famous Short Rib Bowl will be in section 227. Mr. Softy Ice Cream is back, which was served in the mini plastic baseball helmets and in floats. One of my favorite things to get as a kid. The Sundae and the mini helmet. Loved doing that as a kid when I used to go to games with my family. And then they have a couple of sushi places. Nijihama Sushi, which is a restaurant sister to Uni Sushi, also at Petco Park. Serves fresh-made grab-and-go sushi items, section 104 to 11. Pizza Port's back. Puesto's back. Randy Jones Grill is back. Samazon is back. The acai place. And then a couple of the other places that are from Delaware North, like San Diego's Finest Hot Chicken, also back. Seaside Market, home of the Cardiff Crack, is back. Spiro's Mediterranean Cuisine is back. Can't wait for Chris Ello to go check that out for us. And then Stone Brewing, San Diego born pioneer and craft brewing and leader in the India Pale Ale beer industry. He'll be serving some of his favorites and specialty brews on tap. Craft Row on the main concourse behind home plate at the field level. You should be able to see a lot of other local craft beer establishments there as well. So that is a look at the food in San Diego at Petco Park. A lot of great options out there for you to go check out. I can't wait to check it out on opening day. You can mix it up every time you go try something new. One of the reasons why it makes Petco Park so great as one of the best ballparks in Major League Baseball. I've been to other ballparks. Skyline Chili was sick, but that's about it at where the Reds are. Everything else is pretty generic at most ballparks you go to. San Diego Padres do it right and with the best food at any ballpark in the United States. When we come back, we got to break down a couple more things of what Eric Krupner said in his interview with Ben and Woods. We'll talk about that when we come back, and something that is the biggest problem looming for Major League Baseball in the next CBA. That's on the Braden Surprenant Show next on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3. 12:22 on a Tuesday afternoon. Braden Surprenant Show. Thanks again for tuning in and making our day a part of yours. We really appreciate it. Everybody that's on the YouTube page, be sure to give us a like. Eric in the chat always reminds me to do that. He was the 28th like, trying to get those likes up a little bit more per video. Really helps with pushing the video out, in the show out to all the Padre fans out there that might not know we exist. Again, we're on YouTube broadcasting at 97 through the fan SD. We're also on my YouTube page at B_SURP, on Twitch. I know we got our Aztec fan that always chimes in from Twitch who tunes in. We're also streaming live on Facebook, as well as, again, the YouTube page for 97 through the fan. Again, if you haven't done so already, give us a like. Goes a long way. We really appreciate it. Getting us hungry with the food items that are at Petco Park. Looking at some of the comments in the chat, really funny. I got a major party foul from Rod for partial donuts. You know, nobody's seeing you cut it. Just take it with you. I don't want the whole thing. Sometimes I want to have. That's why the mini donut company is so great. Is I get the individual donut, the bite-sized donuts. Now, that being said, it's not like I'm eating 12 of them to account for probably 2 donuts or more. So I'm still, I think, getting the taste that I need without getting too much of the calories and everything like that. But I've turned into the guy that cuts the donuts in half. I did have somebody on we had this donut conversation before last year when I filled in on a show about the donuts you bring to work and why does everybody bring. I just say, I don't know why the box of donuts that people bring to work are always the exact same box. I'm convinced that the people that pick up donuts for work just go, give me whatever. I'm supposed to pick up donuts for work. And then you get like the bear claw, and then you get the cinnamon one, and then you get all these donuts that nobody ever eats instead of the ones that everybody does eat. I prefer the sprinkled ones. I don't know why I have a thing for. I love sprinkles. I love the iced donuts with the sprinkles on, the cake donut with the icing and the sprinkles on top. That's my favorite. But I always feel like the donuts are always the same when they're brought into work, and there's usually a handful of them that probably the donut place can't even sell, and that's why they give it to the guy that's at the office that doesn't care. He's just in charge of bringing the donuts that day. I'd rather just bring a dozen donuts of like the ones that everybody loves. Got to understand the donuts that people like, the ones that are always going to be the ones that people want. And so somebody on Twitter, at Brohaver on X, Brooks, he says, the mini donut company have any apple fritters? No. The joke on that, of course, was I was against the apple fritter. Nobody wants that part of the donuts. But that being said, you have to, if you're the donut guy at work, you have to bring in good donuts that people like. Don't bring in get donuts that you would like. And here's the other thing. If you don't eat donuts, you got to alert the ball club that you can't be donut guy if you don't eat donuts. Oh, I'll swing by and get them. I don't eat donuts. No. You need a donut guy picking up the donuts to get good ones. But again, we've had the mini donut company drop off donuts here before. They are phenomenal. And they have a bunch of different flavors. I'm not a huge, like, bougie donut guy. You know what I'm saying? You know those like super fancy donuts that have cereal on top? You know, you go to the donut, like, some places have that all the time. And I'm not going to out them on the radio. But I'd rather just have the classic donuts. I don't need Lucky Charms on my donut. Or Cinnamon Toast Crunch on my donut. Or like Oreos on my donut. That's a little bit too much. Padres diehard. Braden cutting donuts reminds me of George Costanza cutting the Snicker in half with a knife and fork. You know, it's classy, dude. Everybody started to do it. Maybe you should eat a donut with a fork and knife. Not something that I would personally do. I'd cut it in half and have a piece of it, but I wouldn't eat it with a fork and knife. I have done the George Costanza eat a candy bar with a fork and knife one time just to see what it was like. Yeah, it's all right. Not the best. People are putting their favorite donuts in there. Glazed old fashioned from Katie. Give me glazed twist from Mary's and I'm good. Mary's Donuts out in East County is one of the best spots. I mean, there's a lot of good donut spots out there. I like Donut Touch. I've been told, I mean, we do the donuts on Saturday morning for film, for Cathedral for football. And with the school used to be at Uni, when Uni was across the street from USD, down the road on Linda Vista Road is Rose's Donuts. And Rose's Donuts is apparently the best in town, according to some coaches on the staff. I think they're really good. I think they're in the top echelon of donuts in town, Rose's Donuts. I think Donut Touch was up there as well. I've had Mary's Donuts before in East County, another great spot. I think there's a lot of great spots out there. But the claim to fame was if Rose's Donuts were good enough for Chris Bryant, who went to USD at the time, they should be good enough for me. Rose's Donuts always has a line out the door. But I'm gonna have to go to the mini donut company at the ball game on Thursday. Eric Grupner was on with Ben and Woods, and he alluded to something that I think is very important for the future of Major League Baseball and what direction maybe the Padres will be in, and whether or not they'll be in good shape after the next CBA or worse shape, and how long will that CBA last? We'll talk about that when we come back. The most important thing Eric Grupner said on Ben and Woods is what we'll discuss on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:34 on a Tuesday. Oh, it's Tuesday. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I was decided to play four softball games yesterday. I'm on multiple teams on Monday, and I play for this guy named Shoddy. He runs a co-ed team and a men's team, and then I play for my brother, my younger brother, Matt. But Matt is working late nights now at Enterprise down at the airport. So if you roll through Enterprise and get a car and you come out here for opening day, Matt will be down there. But anyway, I now have to run his team with all his friends because he's out for the next couple of weeks because he's working late at Enterprise. So I had the 10 o'clock game with his team, and then I had co-ed game at 6 on Shoddy's team. They're called Mixed Company at the Poway Sportsplex. And then we had the playoff game for Shoddy's men's team that I play on, and it's called Big Nasty. And we played the first game for co-ed. We actually lost to a team. There was a girl out in right field, and the girl in right field, I don't think she caught a ball all night. And then with 2 outs, I was the winning run at second base, and one of our better hitters hits a fly ball to right field that's going down the line, and she's running on it. And it's like, oh, for sure, just going to be a walk-off winner. She lays out and makes a phenomenal catch to win the game for the other team. It was a pretty impressive play. I doubt that team listens to the Sports Talk Radio, but I had to give a shout-out to that girl that made that diving catch. It was pretty remarkable. That was game 1. Game 2, we played a team called Sliders, Backdoor Sliders. And we ended up winning that game. I ended up pulling my hamstring rounding second, going to third. So that was not fun. That kind of ruined the rest of the night. But I had to play another game. Played against a team called Scrubs. They ended up winning the league. In the championship game, I had a catch in that game, which was lame. And then I had to play the 10 o'clock game, which I basically just managed. I still got to swing, though. I'm still going to swing the bat and hit a little bit, but I had to manage that game. And the Vols won against the PB Whalers. There's your Sportsplex update that I know everybody wanted to hear with men's softball. But that being said, it's funny, like yesterday, this guy on one of the teams, he played for the team called, I think they were called Scrubs. They had jerseys and stuff. I think they all played some of them played at Cal State San Marcos or whatever like that. And I think they know each other from Little League or whatever. They're a pretty good team last night. And the guy that ended up being their catcher, I run into him in the bathroom, and then outside the bathroom, he's like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Have you ever been to the Broken Yoke in Carlsbad, like San Marcos area?" And I was like, "No." And apparently he's a server there. And he was like, "Man, you look so familiar. I feel like I've served you before at that place." And I was like, "I've never been to that Broken Yoke, man. I'm sorry to tell you." And so he's like, "Yeah, but I've seen you from somewhere." And I was like, I didn't want to be that guy, but I was like, "Do you listen to Sports Talk Radio?" It's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you listen to 97 Through the Fan?" He's like, "Yeah, I do." And I didn't even say anything after that. I was just kind of like, "Okay." And he goes, "But it's not that. You had to have been one of my tables before." I'm like, "No, I don't know. Maybe I look familiar to you some way." But I thought that was funny last night. You look familiar to me? I talk on the radio, though. It's not like you can see me in public. I mean, aside from people that like watch YouTube, it's not like I get seen a lot in public. And like, "Hey, look, who it is?" Which is fine by me. Although if you do see me and you are a YouTube thing, say hi. I will say hi back. I don't mind talking to the fans out there that love listening to Sports Talk Radio. And again, I don't do it for that. I do it because I enjoy talking sports with you guys, being in my hometown, and it's fun to me. The extra stuff it's cool. There's some perks to it, but it's being able to talk to you guys in person, and it's awesome. And I can't wait to do that again this Thursday at opening day. And then, of course, on Saturday, special show. You could join 97 Through the Fan this Saturday as we broadcast live at Tom's Watch Bar on 8th and J from 10 a.m. to 3:15 for the East Village Block Party. Ben and Woods will hit the air at 10, followed by myself and the Braden Surprenant Show, and then Gwen and Chris Check out all the baseball action while enjoying Blue Moon and Coors Light, along with delicious food like Tom's famous prime rib dip sandwich. Sounds delicious. That's this Saturday at Tom's Watch Bar on 8th and J Street, brought to you by Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Celebrate responsibly. We had some people in the chat. Mike in the chat goes, talk sports, and then we quickly flipped him to talk a little bit of food in there, which is great. People are putting in the chat what they're most excited for or their favorite food item at Petco Park. If you want to weigh in on that, tweet at us at B_SURP, at BSURP. Little fan engagement. Excited for the new food. We went over it at noon. If you haven't heard it, go back, listen on the rewind feature. You can hear all the new food items that are coming to Petco Park. Let me know what you're most excited for. I obviously talked about the mini donut company, but the hot dog, lobster hot dog, the lob dog, that sounds pretty good. In fact, somebody in the chat said they're going to try to make one of those tonight. So good for you on that. So appreciate that. Shout out to Mike Ramirez. We flipped him to be a donut guy. Mike the donut guy is what I'll say. Yeah, there you go. Mike the donut guy. That's your new nickname, buddy. You can change it like Sushi Sam. You're Mike the donut guy. Something that was very important earlier today, as we go back to sports, we had enough food in there in the mid hour of the lunchtime hour on the Braden Surprenant Show. I'll let you guys consume your lunch and not have to think more about food. But something that Eric Grupner said I thought was very important today on the Ben Woods show in his interview, and I think it has to do with the future of baseball. And there's some things that he is not allowed to talk about before CBA, and he says in this particular clip that he's not allowed to talk about the details, as well as a lot of other members of the Padres and everything going on with Major League Baseball, which is not what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about something else that he hinted at. This is the clip that came from the interview with Ben and Woods, specifically talking about the second portion of a question in terms of the future of television for Major League Baseball teams and how they balance things out and how it's probably going to be part of the next CBA. Here's what Eric Grupner had to say in the second part of the question asked to him by Ben and Woods that I want to get to. I think it's very interesting to say.
So the larger question that you posed regarding where do we go as an industry with, as you appropriately observe, a huge discrepancy between the media revenue that's generated in some local markets versus others. That's a league level question. That's one that I'm not going to get too deep into right now. It calls into question, future CBA negotiations and strategy at a level that's above my pay grade. I'm a part of those conversations, but not in a position to speak on them definitively. But I do think that you see some pretty extreme discrepancies that lead to competitive advantages and disadvantages across markets. And I do think for our game to be the very best it can be in the intermediate and long term, we need to find solutions to that. And I am optimistic that if solutions come, the Padres are going to benefit more than any other market and any other team.
That's very interesting how he finishes that. The Padres are going to potentially benefit in any other market and any other team. I think there's a lot of things that you can unpack from that particular conversation. Obviously, can't get into details of what's going on. He is part of some of those conversations, but as he mentions earlier in that interview, a lot of them are even above his pay grade because of it's being very important in Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is a big problem when it comes to their TV contracts and how much difference there is between the haves and the have-nots in terms of their market size and what they can get in TV revenue, which automatically hooks them up to be extra competitive in Major League Baseball. We mentioned it earlier with NIL and the transfer portal and how the SEC has the best TV contract and they can share the most money and all this, everything like that, and they're getting the best players to play for them. I think the same thing is true about the top echelon teams in Major League Baseball. And it is so to a different level that even the top of the top, like the Dodgers, are outdoing the rest of the usual teams that spend a lot of money, which is not good for baseball. As Padres fans, we can complain all we want about LA having more resources than we have. But to me, when it really starts getting to a point where baseball will change things is when it starts affecting other rich organizations that come from major markets like the New York Yankees, like the Boston Red Sox, like the San Francisco Giants, like the teams in Texas that are also big markets. I mean, the only big market team that's really not doing too much, and the only reason why they're a big market is because there's no team surrounding them, is the Colorado Rockies. That's a different story. But with the competitive advantage that you get by having a big local TV contract compared to most of the league that doesn't have it. Cubs too. Yes, exactly. Cubs with their deal with Marquee. It is setting a precedent where this is going to be the biggest story and the biggest hang-up in the next CBA. It's going to be about television revenue and what the model's going to be. And is everybody going to be under the same umbrella in the future? How are we going to divvy this up? How are we going to make it more competitive? And I think there's enough teams now in Major League Baseball that are upset with this where this can make some hay. And I think if they switch it around and you don't have the local TV revenue where you're keeping all of it. Now, they're not keeping all the money. Some of the money the Dodgers get, they do have to send elsewhere. But to say it's equal at any point is malpractice. And a lot of national pundits continue to push that narrative, which is utterly ridiculous. But that being said, if they could get to a neutral spot where you are playing in a sense of a salary cap, or you're playing in a sense of sharing revenue on these TV contracts, where everybody has a centralized TV deal where everybody makes money and the same, Padres definitely are in a position to be one of the major beneficiaries of new particular rules. We talk about the NFL all the time. The NFL has a central television deal. And they have a television deal with CBS, and they have a television deal with Fox, and they have a television deal with NBC, and a television deal with ESPN and Amazon Prime. And all of those television deals are roped in together. There's no local market. There's no local way to watch the game. It is all a national TV contract. They lope it all together and they split all the money. And then on top of that, they have a salary cap and they have the most competitive league in all of the United States. And you have small market teams that do very well. I mean, the city of Green Bay has a smaller population than the city of El Cajon. And it's not just city size, obviously. It's market, it's surrounding area. We know that conversation. But like Kansas City's not a big media market. They've been the height of the NFL for the last couple of years. You have small media markets being able to compete at a high level. So if they're able to make a switch and do something like that, they will be able to make it better for the Padres in the future. Now, if they don't, we'll see where this thing leads. But right now, the way that Major League Baseball is set up, it's set up for failure in the grand scheme of things because a lot of fans, I don't think, really want to watch that much when it's just going to be the Dodgers. I think this year will be a guinea pig year. But you look at where everything stands right now in terms of the confrontation about these TV deals. I mean, the big market teams aren't going to want to give up their deal to share with other organizations that do not have the resources to be able to accumulate the same thing. They don't want to share. So what's interesting about this is for the next CBA, where the players and the ownership groups have to agree, which we have gone through now multiple times, you have to be in a position, if you're the owners, where you have to be on the same page as a group before you can even get on the same page with the players. So until they figure this problem out from an ownership side and get on the same page with all of the teams and all the owners coming together, they really can't even start negotiating with the players, which could hold up Major League Baseball in the next CBA after the conclusion of the 2026 season. You got all of 2025, and then you got all of 2026 for Major League Baseball, and then they need a new CBA. And this is going to be the biggest subject at hand in the new CBA. This is going to be the biggest problem looming for Major League Baseball in the future. That's why some of these payrolls and some of these, contracts being handed out, when you start looking at the bigger picture in the future of whether or not these are going to be affordable or not, and whether or not it's going to be grandfathered, a lot of it has to rely on the new CBA and what the new rules are going to be for Major League Baseball. Are there going to be more games or less games? Are they going to expand the playoffs? Are they going to have a salary cap? Are they going to implement a salary floor? I mean, these are all conversations that are probably going to be discussed in the next CBA. And we saw during 2020 how long it took just to get them to agree on a schedule of a certain amount of games and what they're going to get paid for and how many playoff games there's going to be when they're trying to do whatever it takes to get on the field. That's one problem. Yeah, street documents in the chat. More teams expansion. That's another thing on the docket. Stadium issues with the A's organization and the Rays organization is on the docket. I mean, a lot of problems that are at hand for Major League Baseball that they have to deal with in the next CBA. And the thing that's really going to keep it a problem, is this local TV deal model and the RSN model that has now become defunct with the fact that it's not a booming business anymore with television streaming. That has killed the RSNs, which has killed the media rights deals. If they're going to go to something local that's via streaming where you get paid based on how many subscribers you have, that is not a destination Padres fans want to go down. Even though the Padres, as Eric Grubner said, led Major League Baseball teams in local streaming subscribers. But even with the local streaming subscribers that they have, it's not going to be enough to compete if they have to compete with linear television deals and local TV markets that the Dodgers have and the Yankees have. So it's crazy how this is going to play out. And I'm interested to see what it looks like. And again, you're not going to hear a lot about it because there's going to be, Rob Manfred's talked about fines for organizations and front office people if they start talking about it out loud. And obviously that makes a lot of sense because they have to be on the same page. They can't be leaking information out to the public, especially not to the players' side of things. So what Eric Grubner said in this particular interview, I think it's very interesting to see. I think obviously it's a problem. And it's not just a problem for the Padres. It's a problem for a lot of teams in Major League Baseball. And if it's a problem for more than just one team in Major League Baseball, it is going to be a problem in a CBA, which I think if it gets addressed is good news for the Padres because I think they are a team that could benefit the most from a new particular situation when it comes to media rights and an NFL model. I think that's going to be a big one there for Major League Baseball. I think it benefits the Padres tremendously. Jeff Sanders just put out a tweet, get you geeked up again for Major League Baseball and opening day. Jeff Sanders of the San Diego Union Tribune put out the Padres-Braves probable starters for this weekend. Thursday, we already know it's Chris Sale, the left-hander, versus Michael King, which is interesting because, and we'll talk more about this probably tomorrow and on Thursday, to get into lineups and stuff like that. Everybody loves talking about their lineups. Everybody likes giving their lineups. I like seeing the different opinions about lineups. Brandon Lockridge going to start on opening day. Why wouldn't he? You're going to use him in left field against left-handed pitching. You got Cy Young Award winner Chris Sale, left-hander, pitching for the Atlanta Braves in Game 1. I would imagine Brandon Lockridge is on the opening day starting lineup over Jason Hayward, but we'll find out. Chris Sale versus Michael King is Thursday's matchup. Friday's matchup, Ronaldo Lopez and Dylan Cease, a couple of right-handers on Friday night for Beer Fest. Should be a fun time. Saturday, Spencer Schwellenbach versus To Be Determined, which we knew from the Padres standpoint. That's either going to be Hart or Vazquez, which will be giving away a signed Vazquez ball at Baja Ricks on Thursday. And then Sunday, for Sunday Night Baseball, Padres have the first Sunday Night Baseball of the season. It's going to be A.J. Smith-Shawver, right-handed pitcher for the Braves, against Nick Pivetta on Sunday Night Baseball. Here's your pitching matchups for the weekend. The only one that we don't know about, obviously, is who's pitching Saturday for the Padres? Is it Hart or Vazquez? And then who's pitching Monday for the Padres against the Guardians? Is it Hart or Vazquez? Can the Padres keep Jackson Merrill in San Diego? He wants to be here. We'll talk about it next. 1 o'clock. Leading you up to Gwen and Chris at 2. Braden Surprenant Show rolls on. I'll be listening to Gwen and Chris on the way up to Fullerton today. USD Torero's baseball program at Cal State Fullerton today for some Tuesday action. Tough losing 2 out of 3 and losing in the last inning on Sunday against LMU in the first series of West Coast Conference play. Look to bounce back today against Cal State Fullerton. I'll be up there with those guys this evening. I'll be back tomorrow for another show of the Braden Surprenant Show. And then Thursday, it's opening day. We are getting closer and closer to opening day on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We'll be out of Baja Rick's with Ben and Woods on to start the show or start the day from 6 to 10. I'll be on from 10 to noon. Sam Levitt from the Loft at Petco Park will be on for the Padres pregame show leading up to first pitch at 1:10 as we have Chris Sale of the Atlanta Braves going against Michael King of the San Diego Padres. That is the opening day matchup between the Padres and the Braves, and starting a 4-game series against Atlanta to get the year off. And the tough start to the season for the San Diego Padres in terms of their schedule. They got to take on 2 playoff teams back to back to get 2025 underway. And if you start looking at some of the schedule and everything like that with the Padres, and again with the schedule always comes out in the middle of the season the year before, and you look at it and you kind of pick apart like where everybody is and everything like that, and then you forget about it. You forget about like who they play in the first month or two and where some of the road trips are and everything like that. But the first 2 series of the year versus Atlanta at home, and then the Cleveland Guardians come to town to take on the Padres on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for a 7-game homestand. And we'll have all the coverage for Padres to get out of the gate. And then after that, it's a road trip to Chicago and Sacramento. They play the Cubs and the A's before coming back home to take on the Rockies, and then the Cubs again. I mean, Chicago is one of those teams that the Padres are competing with for a playoff spot. That is one of the teams I think you should be focused on if you're a Padres fan. Less the Dodgers, more some of the teams you're competing a wild card spot with. One of them is the Cubs. And within the first 2 weeks of the season, you will be done playing the Cubs all year. With 3 games on April 4th, 5th, and 6th in Chicago, and then 3 games against the Chicago Cubs at home, the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And then that's it. You're done playing them for the rest of the season. It's funny how that works. A lot of American League teams to start the year, too. Cleveland, after San Francisco in the opening week. Oakland. I'm going to call them Oakland about 500 times this year. Sacramento, which they don't want to be known as the Sacramento A's, but just the A's. You will play 7, 8, 9 of April. And then after a couple of National League games against the Rockies and Cubs, it's the Astros and Detroit. You play the Detroit Tigers on April 21st to the 23rd, some midweek action, and then the Astros before that over the weekend. And then you got Tampa. You're going to play Tampa. You want to play Tampa a little bit earlier. They're banged up, especially with guys like Shane McClanahan being hurt to start the season. And then you finally play the Giants at home April 29th, 30th, and for a 2-game set here at Petco Park. An interesting start to the season before you have a long road trip to start off May, where the Padres will be in Pittsburgh, they'll be in New York against the Yankees, and then they'll be against Colorado. And that's kind of the first couple of weeks of the first month and a half of the season, leading up to Memorial Day weekend. They'll play the Angels at home May 12th, 13th, and 14th, followed by the Mariners, and then off to Toronto and Atlanta, and then home against the Marlins, and that will be the first 2 months of the season for the San Diego Padres. Decent schedule from the beginning, not impossible, but it's very important for the Padres to get off to a good start, which they haven't done in the last couple of years. We saw it last year with the Padres. Just hanging around 500, hanging around 500, hanging around 500, hanging around 500. First day back from the All-Star break, you get blown out by Cleveland, and then they took off. And every time, Mike Schilt was like, I've led championship clubs before, led good teams before. We're all right. We're all right. And Schultz teams usually do better in the second half, and we'll see. But it'd be nice for them to get off to a pretty decent start. I am going to say this right now. I've already said it before. When Manny gets off to a slow start, I don't want to hear anybody saying he's old. I don't want to hear anybody saying that he's getting paid too much. I don't want to hear anybody say that he can't get it done. He's done that every year almost, except for 1 year, gotten off to a slow start. He probably is going to get off to a slow start. So you don't need to worry about it too much. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. There's a good article today about Jackson Merrill, and that's kind of what I want to talk about, as Dennis Lin wrote a long, in-depth piece about Jackson in the latest article in The Athletic about a lot of the different things when it comes to Jackson Merrill in terms of whether or not the Padres can keep him in a Padres uniform and the Padres' future. More than a year before he boarded his first overseas flight and landed in the majors last season, Jackson Merrill found himself confronted with the business of baseball. Padres had drafted him 2 summers earlier, and already ahead of his debut in High A, they wanted to discuss the idea of a contract extension. They've been trying to get this guy extended on a contract for a long time now, and they've discussed it multiple times. The Padres believe that Merrill was no ordinary 19-year-old, and team officials lauded his talent and gushed about his makeup. They forecasted a swift ascent through the farm system and an early impact after his arrival, and they pictured Merrill entrenching himself up the middle of Petco Park for years to come. And then in 2024, he made the big leagues. As mentioned in a quote from this Dennis Lin article from AJ Preller, we've had conversations at different moments over the last few years, even dating back to when he was in the minor leagues. He understands that we value him a lot and we want him here for a long time. Padres president of baseball operations, AJ Preller, said recently. Those were some of the concepts from the past. We were just like, was there a creative way to do something before he broke into the big leagues? And even last year, when he was breaking into the big leagues, ultimately we never got to anything concrete. First season at Jackson Merrill, went out there, selected to an all-star game, seamless transition from shortstop to center field. And not signing an extension before he debuted was obviously the right choice, because he saw another rookie in Jackson Churio get a contract before he made his debut, and he was locked in on potentially going out there and trying to earn his own money and earn his own contract. He had opportunities to help the team out as well with winning a Rookie of the Year, would have got a team a draft pick. But if you go read the article from Dennis Lin, you see all the intangibles of a young player that acts like a veteran, but also one that is just so focused on winning and wanting to be on a winner. He didn't want to worry about the Rookie of the Year last year because he was focused on trying to get the Padres to a playoffs and winning a World Series. And then he understood that if he did win the Rookie of the Year award, the Padres would be getting a draft pick, and he started playing hard to try to get the Padres a draft pick with some of these incentives that they have to bring young players up earlier in Major League Baseball instead of trying to finagle their contracts. Had that little chip on his shoulder that he didn't win the Rookie of the Year. He said it was his Rookie of the Year is sick. Don't get me wrong. I've no hatred against the award, no hatred against anything that comes with it. I'm proud of the people who won it. I was proud of Paul. He had a great year. I'm not tripping about it. He does care a little bit. He likes to add an extra chip on his shoulder. The kid plays with a big chip on his shoulder, and he's always hungry, as Xander Bogaerts said when asked about him. He's always that guy. Jason Hayward, a pro that has had a interesting career, has said this about the 21-year-old, about to be 22-year-old. I just feel like the way he plays the game, the way he goes about his business, in his mind, he's always in the office. Just what can I do to get better? What can I do to be the best version of myself? He's wowing a bunch of veteran players. He's got the right mental makeup. He's got the talent. And he's got the future. But the question is, can that future be part of the Padres organization? I said it all year last year, and obviously the Padres were trying to work on it. It's not like they didn't try. They've been trying to get him signed since he was 18, 19 years old to a contract extension. They know about his mental makeup. They know about his talent. And a mental makeup goes a long way when it comes to ball players and, of course, getting them to big contracts. In December of 2023, Brewers outfield prospect Jackson Chourio agreed to an 8-year, $82 million contract. Significance of this move registered with Merrill because of age, position, and potential to be a perennial all-star, as well as the fact he's got the same name. Merrill obviously was paying attention. He goes, quote, "That was before he even played a major league game, though. I got to see that. I'm like, oh, that's great, but maybe I should prove it first, and then let's go get that deal or something." The deal may not happen anytime soon. Merrill has put himself on track to get a much larger payday. And the Athletics' Tim Britton recently projected an extension for Jackson Merrill in the neighborhood of 15 years, $375 million. With the Padres already carrying several nine-figure contracts, they might not be able to afford him, at least not at that price range, due to existing commitments. No team in baseball appears to have a wider gap between the floor and ceiling. Key regulars Dylan Cease, Michael King, Luis Ariz, and Robert Suarez could help the Padres coming off a 93-win season to a second consecutive playoff appearance. And as pending free agents, they could also be prime candidates to be traded this summer, maybe opening up some money for a guy like Jackson Merrill. The more he plays at a high level, the harder it's going to be to try to keep this guy part of the Padres organization in a player that you need to have part of your organization for everything that he brings, all the intangibles, the desire to win, the desire to be better, the desire to, be on a winning team. He said that he wants to be here in San Diego. A 15-year, $375 million contract. I mean, I don't know if the Padres can even afford that. But there is one other thing that Jackson Merrill said that I think is very important to the future of the Padres and why they might be able to extend Jackson Merrill. We'll talk about what he said when we come back and why Jackson might still be a Padre after all when it's all said and done. Maybe they can't afford him on some of the comments that he made about what he's looking for in a contract and in a future home. We'll talk about that next and get to Tim and Banna on the phone calls when we come back. The Braden Surprenant Show live and local from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 118 on a Tuesday. I'm getting ready to drive up to Cal State Fullerton for USD, and Fullerton in baseball should be a fun one up there later on tonight. Looking forward to that. We're going to go leading up to Gwen and Chris, so we'll take over at 2 o'clock. Obviously, a lot to talk about with Magoon Gwath exiting San Diego State and entering the transfer portal. We talked a lot about that earlier on the show in the first hour. And we got some other interesting nuggets on the transfer portal, what Tom Izzo had to say about it. We'll play in the next segment as well. But I do want to get to your phone calls today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Plus, there's the one thing that Jackson Merrill said that I think will lead to him potentially staying with the San Diego Padres in a contract extension. Again, he is playing himself to a level that it might be very hard to keep him just with the contracts that the Padres have already handed out, plus what Jackson Merrill should get on the open market. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to get to your phone calls first. Let's get out to Bonna in San Diego. Bonna, what's going on? How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, Braden? So Jackson, man, I really hope he can stay, but like you said, I think he'll end up outplaying his contract because kid's amazing. And last year when I guess we went to the Red Sox, I found out that that was his childhood hometown team. He had about 20 family members in attendance, and of course he went yard. So if I had to predict, kind of like the Adrian Gonzalez move, I think he's going to go from San Diego and be a Red Sox, go to his hometown team, and I think he'll end up outplaying his contract here, and we can't re-sign him. And, of course, I think he wants to play shortstop, and we have a long list of shortstops. We gave Xander a lot of money. I don't think we have the budget or the position he wants. So I think he'll end up leaving, and I think he'll probably be a Red Sox.
Well, I hope that's not the case. That's not a bad prediction there, though, Bonna. I appreciate the phone call. Not his hometown. He grew up in the Maryland area, but the Red Sox were his favorite team growing up, and Xander Bogaerts was his favorite player growing up. So hopefully the Padres can bring him back. There are a couple things that I said that he said that I think might lead the Padres to be able to make a deal with Jackson Merrill. Let's get back to the phones. Tim in Miramar. Tim, what's going on, man?
How you doing, Braden? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. I'm doing well.
Hey, you astutely mentioned that the Padres need to get off to a good start this year, which I think is very important. We don't want to be around the transition line, lest we forget how long they lingered at around 500 last year before they finally took off. God forbid somebody in the media mentions a roller coaster and Schulte has a meltdown, right?
Right.
So, which Padre did you mention? A very important Padre, by the way, who notoriously gets off to a slow start.
Manny Machado.
Exactly. Why do you think that is? I think it's partly a mindset. You mentioned he might hit 4 home runs in April. Big deal. They need to get off to a good start. He's the quote-unquote leader, right? So why do you think he notoriously gets off to a slow start?
I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think it's a mindset. I think some of it's a mindset with Mr. Machado. I know he gets the numbers, but until I'm not gonna bag on him. But until he takes us to the promised land, man, I'm frustrated. So I think it's a mindset. I think he's got to get going early, just like everybody else needs to. They definitely need to get off to a good start. I think it's a mindset. I mean, why's he got to wait till July or August to get going? I mean, he's done this enough years. Spring training, he says he's healthy this year. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope he gets off to a good start because they're going to need it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it could be a mindset for him, Tim, and I appreciate the phone call. I do think he needs to get off to a good start, just like everybody else in the Padres. I think the way Manny goes is the way the team goes. I think the health of this Padres team from a lot of the stars is going to be a reason why they might get off to a good start. With guys like Luis Arraez not battling the thumb injury anymore, like guys like Xander Bogaerts that doesn't have to deal with the wrist injury anymore. With guys like Fernando, who played half of the season last year on a broken leg and still put up pretty good numbers. And then, of course, Manny Machado. Now, Manny did have a good start in one of those seasons And I think it was one of the seasons that he ended up having one of his best years in a Padres uniform. So, he has done it at least once, but majority of the time he's kind of a slow starter. He's always been a slow starter, including in his time in Baltimore. But one of the years that he had a really good start, I think, was not only in 2020, but there was another one, I think, in 2022 when he was an all-star. He had a good start and he ended up getting hurt. And then since then, he's been hurt every year. 2022, he had that ankle problem. And then obviously with the elbow, that was a problem the last couple of years. He'll be in a good spot where he could go out there and hopefully compete early and get off to a decent start. But that being said, I've already said it, but Manny, if he doesn't get off to a good start, I don't think the world is ending for the Padres. But it would be nice to not hover around 500 and have the debate of whether or not the Padres should buy or sell at the deadline and then pull the trigger on selling some pieces, because the Padres have a lot of pieces that they can sell. And we don't want to be in a position where they have to even think about that at the deadline or close to the deadline and start thinking, well, maybe we're in the position to buy and sell. I think that's a bad precedent to set, for the Padres, because again, as I mentioned before, and you hear it in my open, you cannot punt on a Manny Machado prime here. I mean, Manny Machado's in that years. I mean, from 28 to about 32, 33. And you get out there and from age 28 to about 33, you're going to get the best years of Manny Machado's contract. And then everything after that is you're hoping for the best because you're paying him a lot of money for a long period of time. And you want to try to make the most of it in his prime to justify giving him the amount of money that you gave him. Same thing with Xander Bogaerts. And so what you can't do is take one of those and punt because there's a couple of pieces around that you're kind of in no man's land. And they're in a tough spot right now. They need a lot of their players to hit. They need guys like Hayward to hit. They need guys that they have brought in like Yuli Gurriel to hit. And I mean, not just at the plate, but just hit as a pickup in general. They can't be having guys like Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter out of the game, or Rougned Odor and a Robinson Cano. Now, we haven't talked a lot about Jake Cronenworth. Jake Cronenworth is a player that's had a pretty good year in spring training, had a good spring. He's another player that is kind of an X factor for this Padres team. He needs to be able to go out there and compete at a high level early. I mean, they need to get off to a good start because they cannot. They're already down a game in the standings of the Dodgers, and don't worry about that. Again, I mentioned that last week. There's no reason to worry about the division right now. Let's focus on the teams that you have to deal with. In fact, I got a great tweet from Doug Brady, who is a quarterback coach in town, good friend of mine. And he put this at the end. It's very important. Losers focus on winners. Winners focus on winning. That's a great mindset to have. Losers focus on winners, and winners focus on winning. And so when you think about it, and we see a lot of people in the chat, and I'm not calling you a loser, but I think we need to change our mentality, as Tim mentioned with the mentality at the beginning part of this phone call with Manny and starting the season off right. But if we're going to reshape the mentality as a fan base, we need to stop worrying about the Dodgers and start worrying about ourselves and understanding the task at hand that we have to deal with as the Padres organization. And that's dealing with Atlanta, and that's dealing with Philly, and that's dealing with the New York Mets, and that's especially dealing with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who took a tough blow today by Jordan Montgomery being placed on the injured list. And he will miss the majority of the season, in fact, the entire season with Tommy John surgery. Losers focus on winners, and winners focus on winning. That needs to be the mentality for Padres in 2025. And I know the players are focused on that. But we can't, as a fan base, either be focused on things that don't matter. And right now, focusing on the Dodgers in the division does not matter. It does not matter. You got to focus on what we can control and everything like that. Change the mentality. You got to stop treating that series like it's our World Series. And there's going to be a lot of chirping coming up from the north. There's going to be, a lot of extra confidence after last year, trying to bait you into saying some stuff. Don't worry about it. Don't have to worry about it. They don't matter to us. Just another series. That's how we have to treat that mentality. Losers focus on winners. Winners focus on winning. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. A reason why Jackson Merrill will sign a contract extension with the Padres when we come back. Plus, Tom Izzo talking about the transfer portal and how it's affecting that particular club, one of the higher ones in college basketball. We'll talk about that too. Wrap up the show. Lead you to Gwen and Chris on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Braden Surprenant Show on this Tuesday. Have another packed show again tomorrow on Wednesday, leading up to opening day. Should be a fun time for all of us out there at Baja Ricks. Look forward to seeing all of you guys out there. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. Thanks again for making our day a part of yours as we are getting closer and closer to opening day, as mentioned. 2 days away now. Opening day on Thursday. It's going to be a great time. We're going to be out at Baja Ricks at 170 6th Avenue across from the Hard Rock as we celebrate opening day this Thursday. Bennett Woods will broadcast beginning at 6 a.m., followed by the Braden Surprenant Show until noon. We'll have deals on Coors Light, Blue Moon, Topo Chico, plus special breakfast menu and $10 footlong TJ Dogs and special Blowfish Tequila Premium Margaritas. Join 97 through the fan at Baja Ricks from 6 a.m. to noon this Thursday for opening day. And then again on Saturday, we got 6 shows this week. Saturday, excited to talk with you guys again as we will hopefully be talking about how the Padres can win a series against the Atlanta Braves, hopefully with a couple of good games in the beginning. But this Saturday, we will have all 3 of our shows in action. Join 97 through the fan this Saturday as we broadcast live at Tom's Watch Bar, the old social tap, on 8th and J from 10 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. for East Village Block Party. Ben and Woods will hit the air at 10 a.m. I will be on after that as the Braden Surprenant Show. And Gwen and Chris will be after me. Check out all the baseball action while enjoying Blue Moon and Coors Light, along with delicious food like Tom's famous prime rib dip sandwich. That's this Saturday at Tom's Watch Bar on 8th and J Street, brought to you by Blue Moon. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Celebrate responsibly. 2 big remotes coming up for us on this week. And hopefully we'll have more throughout the season. It's great to be out there with all of you guys and talking Padres baseball. Excited for the season to start. As Tim in Miramar called in and mentioned, be good to get off to a good start to the year. I think a lot of that goes with Manny, even though Manny doesn't usually get off to good starts. It'd be great for that to happen. I'm really excited to see this ball club play and some of the guys that made it on the bench. I'm excited to watch Gavin Sheets play. He earned his way onto the team. He hit his way onto the team, and I'd like to see him go out there and have a good year for the Padres at age 28. Maybe a new lease on life being in the Padres organization instead of being with the Chicago White Sox, which is a complete dumpster fire of an org. But I think it'd be cool. Our guy Mike Ramirez in the chat pulling up to the team store as we speak. Brand new team store down there at Petco Park. They renovated every level of the Western Metal Supply Company building. Will be cool to see. I encourage you to check that out. I'm gonna have to go check that out as early as I can for the Padres, to check out the Padres' new digs over there where they got the brand new team store on the first floor. They redid the loft on the 3rd floor, which is where you can check out Sam Levitt's pregame shows every single time we have a home game. And then in the top level, I think is premium seating or group seating. That seems pretty cool too. But anyway, I'd like to see Gavin Sheets in the Padres uniform. I'm excited to watch him play. I honestly think Brandon Lockridge might be a secret ingredient to this team being very good. He's another one of those players. And we spent some time on Brandon Lockridge yesterday because he was that final roster decision for the Padres. He was the 26th man that made the team. We heard from Mike Schilt talk about how Brandon Lockridge does a lot of different things. And he kept, he used the quote, when I look at players, I look at how can those players defeat the other team. And you could do it with a lot with Brandon Lockridge. He plays good defense. He's got great speed. He's going to steal a lot of bases so he can pinch run late in games. And he hit for a high average. I mean, one of the big things that the Padres, or should I say points of emphasis the Padres had for Brandon Lockridge in order to make the team was we want to see you hit more consistently. And he did that in spring training. He earned his way onto the club. He got a taste last year of being on a big league club because he made his major league debut with the Padres. They acquired him from the New York Yankees for Enyel De Los Santos. I mean, that could set up to potentially be one of the best trades that A.J. Preller makes if Brandon Lockridge can go out there and be very successful, not only this season, but in a Padres uniform. Got it for Enyel De Los Santos at the trade deadline. He makes his major league debut, stole a couple of bags, had limited at-bats last year, but when asked about it, he said, I got the taste. And everybody that told me about making the big leagues, it's easy to make the big leagues. It's hard to stay in the big leagues. And when he got that taste, he never wanted to not be in the big leagues again. Worked his ass off during the offseason like a lot of these guys do. And he's got that drive and that fight and that heart that you want to see out of players. Like you see out of Jackson Merrill. I think the Padres have surrounded this roster with players like that. I mean, I like that attitude. Xander Bogaerts knowing that he was going to play shortstop again in 2025 when he was told that he was going to play shortstop in 2025 by the Padres front office and Mike Schilt, and taking the time to get himself into shape and be a lot better because he knows he needs to be better. You love that out of veterans. That's better than being the guy that, thinks he's still what he was a couple of years ago. He doesn't have to work extra hard. And the Padres have had guys like that too in the past. That's why having a guy like Xander Bogaerts on the team is huge. I'm a huge advocate for Xander, a big fan of Xander. And I think he's going to have a good year. I think, the Padres really need him to have a good year, but I'm excited to watch Xander Bogaerts play this year, fully healthy. I'm excited to watch Manny Machado play fully healthy. I'm excited to watch Fernando Tatis Jr. play fully healthy. I mean, when Fernando has his mindset and when he's fully healthy, he's second to none in Major League Baseball. He flat out said that yesterday in an article. I like that attitude too. So excited to see a lot of these players. I'm excited to see Jackson Merrill. I'd be more excited to see Jackson Merrill in a Padres uniform for a long period of time. Now, that being said, he still has 5 years left of control before they have to potentially give him a contract. His last 3 years of this will be arbitration years, so he'll get paid based on past performances. But the thing is, I like Jackson Merrill from a lot of different perspectives. We talked about it in the article in The Athletic by Dennis Lynn is great. Really lays out the attitude of Jackson Merrill, how he wants to win, how he wants to be here in San Diego, understanding how much his worth and value is to make sure he gets what he deserves, but also at the same time, there's a couple of comments that he made, which leads to me on how the Padres are going to be able to keep this guy long term. He had this to say about, being a San Diego Padre and future of his career. I want to be here long term. I don't care about I care about the money for sure, but I know my value and my worth. I'm not oblivious. I want to be here, but I'm not going to try and screw them and take all their money. I'm 21. If you sign a longer deal, you want 6-7 years to come around, and you've got these people who we can sign and get on the team and bring with me rather than sign a big year deal or a big deal and feel like you can't get anybody else, and that's tight. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you've got to be patient and see how it plays out. That's some pretty wise words out of a 21-year-old. Some pretty wise words out of a 21-year-old. You want the 6-7 years coming. You don't want the 6-7 years coming around and not having enough money to spend on other players. The guy wants to win. That's not the case for a lot of players in Major League Baseball. There's a lot of guys that want to get their money, and you get what someone's willing to pay for, and that's their right. And I'm not saying that Jackson Merrill is going to take a hometown discount, because he's not. But it's not like money is everything to Jackson Merrill. He wants to get what he's worth, makes it a fair deal, and he wants to be able to win, and he knows in doing so, they got to have money to spend for other players later on in his career. And there will be a time if they do sign him to a long-term deal. Again, he is apparently on pace to get a 15-year, $375 million contract, as pointed out by Tim Britton. 15 years, $375 million. Can the Padres afford to do that? I don't know. Maybe if it's end loaded at the end of his career after they got Manny and Bogaerts off the books and some of these other players, maybe. I think the CBA has a lot to do with it. In fact, if I had to make a guess, if the Padres are able to give Jackson Merrill a contract extension, I don't think it's going to happen until after the new CBA. to figure out where the money's going to be, to figure out if there's a salary cap, to figure out, how much money they're getting in TV revenue. I mean, at this point, the fact that you haven't been able to sign him already, and they've tried, the Padres have tried, it's laid out in the article. They were trying to do it when he was 18, 19 years old. Before even last year, when they knew he was going to be good. And I said that all year last year. Look, if you think that this guy's going to be what you're expecting him to be, you got to sign him before he outplays the contract that you are able to give him. And I think the Padres tried really hard to do that, try to get a steal of a deal, which is their right and their prerogative. It is a business after all. But the heads up discussion of, making sure that there's talent around him, understanding that circumstance, I think is huge. In terms of the timeline to potentially sign this guy, I mean, I think it's after the CBA, whenever that goes down. I mean, that might go well into the 2027 season. But I think you got to do whatever it takes to bring Jackson Merrill and make him part of the team for a long period of time. I think that needs to be at the forefront for the Padres. And you look at some of the the deals that are in place. Again, if you want to look at how long you have control of Jackson Merrill, he's still under control until 2030. So after the 2029 season, he becomes a free agent, which means he's going to be 22 this year. So 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. He'll be 26 going on 27 when that contract's over, when his initial contract is over. And the longer you wait, the more expensive it could potentially be, because Jackson could potentially play his way to a higher level than he already has. But by the time he's a free agent in 2030, the guys that are under contract are Manny at $39 million, Xander at $25 million, Tatis at $36 million, and you will get the last year of Jake Cronenworth at $12 million. So you theoretically could wait a couple of years till about 2028, 2029, and then you could give him a contract extension, give him that big time deal. Maybe you buy out a year of arbitration or two and balance it out in the back end of his deal, and then it works out a little bit, and who knows where the money is at after a CBA. And by that time, you'll have Leo DeVries up, you'll have Ethan Salas up, theoretically, and so maybe you have a young core group of guys that balance out Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts' contract. Plus, we don't even know where contracts are going to be at that point in time. I mean, some of the contracts right now are just insane in terms of high level. I mean, just crazy. So, pretty interesting to see on that. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to Eric and Powell. He wants to weigh on the Jackson Merrill situation. Eric, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing? How are you? Love the show, man. Just wanted to say big time listener and big supporter of you.
I appreciate that.
Wanted to see, just as far as Jackson Merrill and the Padres in general, kind of with attendance, not just this year, but the following years. Wanted to see if you had any thoughts on, Trump's deportations and how that might affect it.
Eric and Poway loves to call into this particular talk show, and he thinks he's funny, but he's not. I mean, just think about the person you have to be to call into a talk show at 1:48 in the afternoon when most people are working to drop in a prank phone call. I mean, think about that. What are you doing, dude? Do you work a job? I mean, come on, man. Whatever, dude. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. You guys been doing that for years. Classic. Tom Izzo, and I wanted to get to this. Yeah, I was in the chat. He's probably still laughing at himself, dude. That's his full-time job. Some of us got to work and stuff. Anyway, Tom Izzo talking about the transfer portal and how it's affecting his club. And we talked about it. I mean, he's in the middle of a Sweet 16, and he's got to worry about, dealing with keeping his own players. He's got to deal with potential of the future. He's trying to win games in Sweet 16. I don't understand why it's in the middle of conference or of NCAA tournament play, but they asked Tom Izzo about it, and here's his thoughts on the transfer portal and where he's at right now, as it already opened and over 700 players have entered the transfer portal.
But what my team's done has been incredible. And I'm not ready to move on. So, Judd, I followed what you said. You know, I'm going to worry today about the guys I got in this program that have done an incredible job this year, and that's it. And if that costs me later, so be it. But Tom Izzo isn't cheating the people that he has that have been loyal to him for this chaos that is going on out there. Is that cool? You got enough? No, because you don't understand. When I came back Sunday night, that was it. There was nothing on my mind but giving these guys a chance to win one more game, get to Elite Eight, and one more game, and have a memory that'll last their entire life, their kids' life, and their grandkids' life, because that's what it is. And so excuse me for being passionate about it or pissed off about it, whichever words you want to use, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's not fair. It's not fair to the people. You could say it's fair to your program. I'll run my program like I want to run my program. And people have a disagreement with that, God bless them. But these guys that gave me everything they could give me are going to have a chance. And I'm not going to screw it up by spending any time on other stuff other than, I don't eat, I don't sleep right now. So why in the hell would I do something else that might benefit me a year from now? And really, it's not going to benefit me now because I don't know what I have. I don't know how much money I have. I don't know which players are leaving or staying. I don't have any idea. So why would I do that? Waste of time.
Interesting comments from Tom Izzo on this transfer portal. I mean, obviously, he's got to worry about trying to win a Sweet 16 game and get to the Elite Eight with his current group. I mean, this is all escalating again because of all this. You're trying to get ahead in college athletics and in high school athletics and in all these school athletics that you have to deal with. And it's tough. And the thing is you keep playing into it because like, this is the system. I mean, coaches like Tom Izzo go put their foot down and just be like, we're not doing this. This is ridiculous. I mean, they are at the luxury of being Michigan State, and so they can go get players when they want to get players. So there's a little bit of that involved as well. I mean, it's a little bit different story comparing what Tom Izzo can do compared to what Brian Dutcher can do at San Diego State. But the coaches are fed up with dealing with this. We talked about it earlier in the show, and I mean, there's a big reason why a lot of these longtime head coaches are like, forget this. Because you're not coaching athletics anymore. You're asking for money, as we had to see Brian Dutcher do on a video. It's not fair to him. He's got to do it because he's got to get players to come play for him, and he needs money to do so. But it's asking people for money and is being a general manager instead of just being a coach. I mean, that's like being a head coach now is nonstop recruiting of your own players and players on other teams. And the fact that they're doing this in the middle of the tournament is it's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. There's no other professional league that would ever allow this kind of timeline. And again, it's all about, it's all based on the academic calendar. Are they student athletes or are they not student athletes? They're doing a system right now where they're professional student athletes. I mean, it's a mix of both, and it sets up for just a wild product. That'll do it for me today on the Braden Surprenant Show. Tony Gwynn Jr. and Chris Ello and Matt Scraby will take things over. We are a couple of days away from opening day. Should be a fun time on Thursday. Be sure to come out and hang out with us at Baja Rick's. Look forward to it. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Gwynn and Chris coming up next on 97.3 The Fan.